One moment, he was just an ordinary boy on Earth, secretly helping strangers in small ways, hiding his kindness like a hero in the shadows. Then Truck Kun made his move again and ended it all in a flash. When he opened his eyes, it wasn't the hospital he saw, but a goddess. She called herself Hersia, praised his pure heart, and offered him a new life in a world of swords and magic. He had only one request for her: to be unimaginably strong, yet live as an unremarkable commoner. She granted it, but with a cruel twist. If anyone ever discovered his power, his heart would explode. Reborn as Urian, he grew up in an orphanage where survival meant enduring the cruelty of its director and the indifference of the world. He kept his head down, played the part of the weakest child, and protected his secret. Only his sister Ella brought warmth to his life, sharing her meager food and shielding him from abuse. But when the director revealed his plan to sacrifice Urian to the wolf god, Ella stepped forward, cutting her hair and disguising herself to take his place. She was ready to face death so he could escape. When the director choked her and boasted of the vile things he'd done, Urian could no longer hold back. Ignoring the goddess's warning, he struck. One blow, and the monster's head was gone. After all, he saved Ella and broke free from the orphanage's chains. And in that moment, he discovered the loophole. If no one realized he'd used his power, his heart would not burst. 4 years have passed. The little boy is next shown facing off an eldritch-looking entity, and though the creature's mere presence would give people nightmares for days, the kid simply looks at him with eyes full of wonder. At first, it seems like Urian is terrified of the creature's face, but what he's really worried about is that he forgot about drinking his beloved milk. It really bothers him that he hasn't gained much height in the past 4 years. The towering creature doesn't care about the boy's short king problems. It tries to seize the moment by attacking him. But before the fight can even begin, it's already over in a single punch. Urian blows the creature's top half off, already showing promise to become the next One Punch Man. With the creature's head severed on the ground, Urian excitedly wonders if eating deer antlers will help in his journey to grow stronger. Things haven't changed much, at least regarding his all-powerful status and strength. In the next scene, we get to see a grown-up Ella in a proper uniform alongside our boy. They've come of age to attend the entrance exams for the Magic Academy at last. The one briefing them is actually Sister Arlen, the kind woman who nourished and sheltered the group after the director's pathetic death. Of the 4 kids, Ella and Urian are going to be attending the exams with full preparation. Sister Arlen is happy for them, believing that God always has his reason for taking a life. She thinks it's for the greater good that the director died while these 2 kids survived, and she hopes for a bright future for them ahead. Both Urian and Ella assure Arlen that they'll pass the exams. Remember that wretched old place where the 4 kids made a vow to join the academy? Well, finally they're about to make that dream come to reality. But even beyond that, our boy has been dying for this moment all his life. You see, of the 4 years that passed, he hasn't experienced any kind of difficulty bulldozing against giant monsters. But things are different now. With him joining the academy, Urian will finally get to live his dream of hiding his powers from the promising talents of the academy. He lives for this kind of lifestyle where the protagonist is always underestimated. It fills his heart with excitement to attend the academy. Speaking of the Magic Academy, let's take a second to explain the Royal School of Magic. Founded by the imperial family, this school allows for the nurturing of top-tier talents, regardless of their background or status. The school converts such talents into promising heroes who can then save people from the wrath of monsters. The Magic Academy's exam is underway today, so let's take a minute to look at some of the students. Coming from a noble background, blonde boy Chris over here is proud of the academy living up to its status and name. He glances around to survey the room and realizes that most of the candidates possess a blue emblem, signifying their nobility. That's until Chris spots a red brooch, stunned to realize that he may as well be facing the princess of the royal family herself. The pressure is starting to cave in on him, making Chris realize that the competition is going to be tough for this year. Suddenly, his attention is drawn to a bunch of commoners nearby. Chris spots both Ella and Urian, who appear pretty awkward and have no idea what they're doing. It's clear that they aren't from a family of nobility either, allowing Chris the chance to look down upon them. The blonde boy talks down on the commoners for being pure low lives who are delusional to apply for the entrance exam. But that's not all. The rest of the nobles are also the same, quickly looking down on their peers just because of their difference in class. In fact, they're damn certain that both Ella and Urian will be the first ones to get eliminated from the exam, and think that the school must be offering charity for letting them in. Now, Ella seems pretty bummed up about being judged, but Urian, this dude is having a wet dream right now. He's so happy that people are actually underestimating him, just like they should in any story involving a hidden overpowered character. But for his sister, she's ticked off and turns around to leave right away, no longer entertaining the ramblings of the ill-mannered nobles. Urian tries to stop her, but she advises him strongly against listening to their advice, because these kids value appearances and status over everything. Ultimately, our boy decides to follow her, even though he was enjoying the scene. Let's fast forward to the supervisor announcing the 29th entrance exam of the academy. The supervisor is none other than the embellished head of the Royal Magic Academy, Sir Magus. He assures the applicants that the exam is simple to understand, with only a single objective of protecting people using swords and magic. In this manner, their basic understanding of swords and magic will be tested. By the way, the noble kids aren't giving Urien and Ella a break. They even look down upon our boy while this announcement is happening. One of the instructors of the academy, also known as Walmart Aizawa from My Hero Academia, explains that for the first test, they'll make use of swords to slash the target behind their teacher. Ryunbi epically displays his point by cutting down a dummy effortlessly, all the while flexing his immaculate drip. Having seen him dismantling a dummy with just a piece of paper thrills the candidates' hearts, but that's enough for the demonstration. The instructor begins the test by calling up the first applicant's name. Tien is brought to the arena and is told to begin right when she's feeling confident. The anxious girl worriedly asks if she'll face instant disqualification if she fails to strike the dummy in one slice. To that, Ryunbi explains that it won't happen because the instructors don't really hold them accountable for having certain skills. They even understand that these applicants are just a bunch of children, so instead of trying to impress the instructors, Ryunbi advises the applicant to give it her best shot. With that knowledge in mind, the girl unleashes her slash, but doesn't quite make a proper cut, not even half. Ryunbi calls for the next candidate, which so happens to be Chris, who manages to slice at least half. Same goes for Rishal, who also finishes up with half. At last, Ella's name is called forth, as the hesitant girl arrives at the scene. Offering her a final piece of advice before the test, Urien tells her to simply aim for cutting half of the dummy. She takes his advice to heart, and feels confident once she's facing the dummy. Ella's determined expression may be her display of confidence, but for the rest of the nobles, they're already bickering about and talking shit about the peasants who applied. Instead of giving into their trash talk, this girl maintains a resolute look of determination, recalling her biggest failure 4 years ago, where she was unable to protect her little brother. Armed with emotion, she beautifully swings a perfect slice, cutting the dummy in half and leaving the instructor's jaw open. Urien is really proud of her, while all of her haters quickly turn into her fans, so much so that they want to use her sword for their own tests as well. Anyway, the red-haired girl is really happy that with this, she's found herself motivated to protect Urien, who is always pathetically weak in her eyes. Let's actually go over to the instructor's perspective and see why he's shocked. Ryunbi reflects that a magical wand was deliberately set up inside the dummy, which means that any candidate who even dared to strike it with all of their might would fail to slice the wand. The only way to slash the dummy is to imbue one's magic into their weapon, strengthening it beyond normal capability. However, this kind of technique is difficult for even adults to grasp, let alone for a girl who did it on a whim. This mere test proves that Ella is supremely impressive and talented for a candidate, which brings the instructor to call for the next candidate, our boy Urien. Taking the center stage, Urien prepares himself to strike the dummy. The teacher is so amazed with Ella's performance that it fills his heart with curiosity regarding her little brother's skill. The golden hour arrives when Urien unleashes his slash, but to everyone's disappointment, the boy couldn't even scratch half of the dummy. Using this situation as a way to ridicule the peasant, the nobles continue with their trash talk, calling the kid a pathetically weak child. Ryunbi is also left with the impression that the boy is ordinary compared to his sister. But like I said earlier, Urien secretly loves being looked down upon, to a crazy extent. Even now, bro's face looks like he just beat Goku or something. Starting off with the next test, the candidates will compete in terms of magic. For this, their instructor is a beautiful mage, Ji, and she tells them to use the magical wand to hit their target with magic. One candidate raises an important objection: he can't use magic. But that's completely fine, because apparently the tool is capable of forming water even without the use of magic. This means every single one of them can use the tool to shoot the target, even if they don't have any magic capabilities. First up from the list is the bratty blonde, Chris, who confidently points the tool in the target's direction, unleashing a vortex of water that perfectly hits the target. Chris takes all the praise from his peers for having done an excellent job, while Ji ushers him to return to his spot. Right after him is Urien's turn, who excitedly turns up for the job. But instead of offering him the wand right away, the bratty noble makes it slip and throws it on the ground. An expression of superiority appears on his face, as he reminds the peasant to expect like he's an equal to a noble. Hearing such harsh words, Urien appears stunned, while his sister is horrified. The instructor warns the children not to fight, while our boy reaches for the tool and picks it up, once again showing off that creepy masochistic expression on his face. He's ecstatic that Chris over here gave him an opportunity to make everyone focus their attention on him. Without delaying any further, the boy gets into position, filled with excitement of failing just like planned. This way, he can prominently establish himself as a hidden strength character in front of everyone for good. But in that brief moment, the boy makes one critical error. Urian finds himself so lost in his excitement that he exerts way too much power into the wand, unleashing so much power in fact that the wand shatters. The teacher is stunned, but most importantly, all of his haters have been silenced in one simple performance. A look of nervousness forms on his face, as Urian realizes he's just ruined everything for himself by shattering the wand. The candidates are left at a loss for words, including Urian's very own sister. The noble clowns can't even fathom how a tool could explode like that, especially when the one channeling it is nothing more than a peasant. The situation is a mess for our boy who wanted to maintain his powers a secret. Well, lucky for him, his biggest D1 hater Blonde is already deep into the river of denial, accusing the tool to be faulty as there's no other way to accept what happened. Hearing Chris's accusation, the other noble kids start to back him up, believing that it's only plausible for the tool to experience fatigue with each usage, causing it to become faulty over time. From being shocked, they go back to ridiculing him for being so shitty that even the magic wand broke on him. Once again, the masochist kid is out here lusting for the scene, accepting every one of their insults like a soothing relief to his heart. Not only that, he comes to realize that the magic wand is far too weak to contain even a fraction of his powers. Things would have ended up in the gutter for his hidden strength character persona if all he did was expose himself right in the entrance exam. Urian intends to be even more careful from here on out. Well anyway, with 2 of the tests concluded, the headmaster of the academy issues a final announcement for the 3rd test. This time, they'll form into teams of 3 to venture into the forest and hunt down the monstrous bear in order to retrieve its molar. The headmaster follows through with his point that even though talent with swordsmanship and mana can shine individually, there's no point if it's useless in a real fight against the monsters. This test is designed to ensure that the candidates can prove themselves against a real threat. Come to think of it, Urian is only processing the goal of hunting down monsters when his sister expresses great joy, believing that they're one step closer to achieving their dreams. She has high hopes for their success, and Urian smiles at her back while nodding to her optimistic encouragement. The team formation is put underway. Apparently the teams will be selected by random, based off of the light color their emblems emit. In Ella's case, the color is a bright red, and lucky for our boy, Urian's got the exact same. Or so you guys thought, because that's not Urian at all. In fact, Ella's going to be spending time with the princess and another dude instead of her brother. Meanwhile, Chris is seething in the background that he doesn't get to pair up with the princess instead of the other 2 peasants. As for Urian, he's out here having the time of his life, knowing that Ella's definitely paired up with strong contenders. This way, he won't have to worry about her safety. Even for her, she's pretty happy, and goes off to face the fight ahead. Our boy bids her farewell with a happy smile, but the most surprising fact of all is that he didn't get paired with anyone. Even the other candidates are dodging him like a bullet and think he's going to be a shitty lowlife. Right as he's beginning to think that he doesn't have a team to himself, he hears 2 other candidates approaching him. Turns out that all 3 of them don't share a color. The green-eyed glasses kid is happy to see him, and even praises Urian for his performance. Rishal wants to have fun with his new friend in the exam. As for the girl, she's Tien, the same person who was called earlier in the swordsmanship test. Well, luckily our boy's finally acquired himself a team and won't have to traverse all alone. But that doesn't stop the purple-lighted fuckers from acting like they're the top dogs. They bully the peasants for flocking together in the same team. The comments seem to affect Rishal particularly, because apparently everyone knows that he's failed the entrance exam 4 times already, making him the definition of a talentless dude. As for Tien, she's considered an abandoned noblewoman with no allies to her side. In their eyes, this trio is a miserable one and fits well with each other. Urian takes a look at his teammates, observing what's going on. He understands their sorrowful look of defeat, and notices the scoffing nobles looking down on them. Boasting a positive attitude, the young boy declares that they can always just pass and prove everyone wrong. His words brighten up his teammates' expression, especially Rishal, who beams up in joy and radiates with happiness when pointing out Urian's purity. He admires our boy for remaining steadfast and unfearing even against the petty remarks of the nobles. At this point, Rishal wants to pass the exam just to see Urian in the academy, so he's hoping that they give it their all in their test in order to succeed. Though the 2 of them are confident, Tien appears to be stressed over the outcome. Thanks to her bombing the previous 2 tests just earlier, things aren't looking good for them. Urian takes a second to realize what's going on, and all of a sudden, his soul flinches in fear. All this time, in the hopes of hiding his power, he'd been doing his absolute worst. Though he may have succeeded in concealing his powers, his exam scores aren't going to reflect that. Bro is realizing that he's absolutely fucked, and his dream of entering the academy is in great jeopardy. The kid doesn't want to disappoint his sister and finds himself wavering, but Rishal is there to invoke confidence and believes that they'll pass regardless. Thanks to his previous attempts, he knows full well that even after bombing the first 2 tests, a candidate can still pass if they succeed in the final exam. The monster test has the highest point criteria, meaning it's going to be the deciding factor in whether they pass or fail. This is great news for our boy, who can finally have the chance to correct his mistake and qualify for the admission. Well, things only sounded cool in theory, but in reality, the moment they venture into the forest, their plans go up in flames thanks to the gigantic fire-breathing bear chasing their ass. All three of them are unfortunately useless against the creature and inevitably end up running away to someplace safe. Having outrun the creature, Rishal admits that the monster is just as terrifying as the rumors made it out to be. As for Urian, bro is disappointed. He understands that his goal is to defeat the monster, and doing that is the easy part. Avoiding his friends while hunting, though, that's going to be a pain in the ass for him. The poor kid has to contemplate for a smarter approach, even though he could easily hunt hundreds of these bears all at once. Rishal is starting to lose confidence, admitting that they're at the cusp of failure. Unfortunately, he won't get another chance if he fails the admission test this year. Knowing that none of them can afford to lose, the smart fellow suggests that they should specifically target the bear's molar instead of trying to kill the creature. Going by the description of the test, their job is to hunt the creature and retrieve its molar. But the problem is, they can't fulfill the first criteria because, well, they're weak as shit. However, the second requirement can certainly be fulfilled. A curious Urian inquires if that's even possible, prompting Rishal to explain his genius strategy. Firstly, he alludes to the bear's grueling mouth, highlighting how its teeth are always out. This means they can target them easily, and with Rishal's instructions, they can return with the teeth without having to kill the bear. Apparently, Rishal is absurdly confident in his strategy too, believing that this year's hunting test is the easiest compared to all the others. Anyway, he hands a pouch of deer blood to Tien, instructing her to spray it all over her body. It's a strange request, but not one without reason. You see, the bear monsters are sensitive to smell, which means if they can lure it using the scent of blood, they'll force it to behave recklessly and eventually destroy its own molars. As you can guess, the white-haired girl is definitely not thrilled about this plan at all, especially when she's a terrible runner compared to the rest. But Rishal doesn't really care about that, believing that his strategy will work even if she fails to run properly. The whole situation is sketchy, and it's starting to terrify the noblewoman, especially when Rishal scarily implies that the monster will be vulnerable while feasting on its meal. Now that's horrifying to imagine. Right as Rishal is about to open the bag of blood, our boy grabs his arm and pulls it away, before giving him a serious glare. Urian is genuinely curious if this kid has freaking lost it, because he's straight up plotting to kill Tien here. Meanwhile, Rishal acts like he's not doing anything wrong, because this way they'll both end up qualifying for the academy. Freeing himself, the nerd expresses that a sacrifice is necessary to achieve this goal. After all, it's not like they have any other strategy to catch the bear, not unless they do exactly as he says. Rishal is strongly stubborn in his stance, and uses his lower class and lack of mana as an excuse to kill someone. He strongly urges Urian to follow him and ditch the noble girl, and this way they can simply make it out of the test at her expense. Besides, it's not like anyone else is going to help her anyway, especially when others have already abandoned her. The title of an abandoned noblewoman causes the lonely girl to remember the harsh reality she experienced in her family. Tien was always branded a failure who could never pass, while Ricky was considered a genius older brother. She was always compared and couldn't share the spotlight as Ricky, so much so that her name brings shame to her family. While she's processing that memory, Urian steps up right up to defend her, strongly arguing that people shine when their time comes, and that this nerd doesn't have any right to decide if anyone else is worth it or not. Pissed off, Rishal goes ballistic and splashes the blood right up in both their faces, believing that both of them should die alongside each other. The strong scent of the blood immediately attracts the fire-breathing monstrosity, who lunges like a damn missile to hunt them down. Terrified, Tien thinks they're about to meet their doom. Meanwhile, Urian simply looks at the bear in amusement as a smile creeps across his face. The noblewoman looks over to our boy and understands that Urian can't do anything because of how weak he is. So, in a final act of bravery, she takes upon the role of slaying the beast all on her own. The terrifying bear unleashes its fangs upon the girl, who freezes in utter fear. The same shameful words from her family ring close to her head, and in an effort to prove them wrong, Tien unleashes her magic spell, Wine Shield. This barricade is enough to prevent the bear's initial lunge, as Tien finally claims herself as a noblewoman who is capable of doing more than just standing around. Invoking her wind sword up next, she sends about 6 slashes in the bear's direction, fully confident of her victory. But her pathetic slashes wound up doing absolutely nothing, not even leaving a scratch on the monster's tough exterior. Even Urian is rather surprised at how durable the creature is. Tien doesn't care, and decides to use her magic against Urian in an effort to send him far away from the dangerous location. While our boy is processing what's going on, Tien warns him that she has no idea how Urian is going to stick his landing after she sends him flying. At the same time, she thinks that giving him a little bit of pain is way better than letting him die here alongside her. Honestly, what a girl. She really impresses me because she isn't one of those save me please side characters you see every day. Anyway, Tien waves her wand, aura farming as she flings Urian up in the skies. The boy's words become a warm memory in her mind. For For the first time, someone encouraged her and supported her to make a brave choice. However, what good is that bravery, as now she's about to get annihilated by the bear's thrustful strike. Tien has already given up all hope, and the moment the creature's attack connects with her body, she faints. Right as Tien is about to fall to the ground, Urian returns to the scene with unfathomable speeds and catches her, happy that she finally discovered her own spotlight. He puts her on the ground, remarking how this is his perfect chance to make things right, especially when Rishal has already run off like a coward, leaving him with no witnesses around the bear's massacre. With the beast rushing to attack its next target, Urian waits calmly, and only a second later delivers a casual backhand so strong that it literally vaporizes the creature's body. Bro really said, "I'm not in danger, I am the danger." The grueling beast wails in agony as Urian declares his plans to collect the molars. However, he's in a naughty mood and wants to play a little prank on Rishal. Then again, he has no idea where the whiny nerd went off to. Speaking of which, Rishal appears to have gathered a bunch of kids together, who seem to all be targeting Ella's group. Tien's brother questions what these guys are trying to do, because normally they wouldn't be drawing their weapons against other humans. One of the kids demands the peasant girl Ella to join their group, but of course Tien's brother quickly reminds these clowns that the headmaster is the only man who can determine a student's ability to pass or fail. And with the way these guys are acting, Ricky wonders how they'll accomplish that objective. The peasants seem to have formed an allied group, and their strategy is to force the nobles to fail, allowing each of them a guaranteed spot to victory. Ricky hears this strategy and realizes that they're not going to back down, because apparently these lower-class students have a vendetta against the nobles for treating them lightly. Of course, the composed Ricky doesn't really give a damn, and finds it amusing that they think bringing Ella to their side will guarantee a chance of victory in a sword fight against him. The snickering brat corrects him, stating that they're not planning on facing the nobles head-on at all. In his stupid lust for vengeance, the commoner reveals their strategy to lure the monsters here, so that they can annihilate the nobles piece by piece. Thanks to this guy spoiling their group's plan, Ricky now has a greater understanding of what's going on. He already knew that the commoners participating for this year's exam were a larger group than last time, but it seems like it was all to make up for this elaborate plan. The princess, wearing her majestic red emblem, shares that these commoners knew about the bear's sharp attraction to blood. She reveals her position as a member of the royal family, shocking the commoners with her words. It's unjust in her eyes that the students who are meant to become protectors one day are actually using vile methods to slaughter their own kind. Issuing an official order, she commands Ricky to dismantle each of them and capture them. And as for the person who concocted this entire strategy to use the monster traits to harm other students, that person will be thoroughly investigated by the imperial family. Okay, so long story short, Rishal is fudged. Anyway, Ricky carries Gojo's aura in battle and unsheathes his sword. The moment he rips it out, dozens of slashes have already been made, destroying everyone in his path. The shitty nerd senses that they're out of options and decides to go ballistic with the blood strategy again. 3 students try their best to smear Ricky's beautiful attire, but before the blood can even reach him, it is blocked by some kind of shield, while the swordsman simply stares them down with a "bitch please" expression. Rishal's problems only worsen as he fails to comprehend how the blood dried up in mid-air. The shield is actually cast by the royal princess, who demands an immediate surrender from them, dubbing their strategy a failure. Witnessing the scene before her eyes, Ella is thoroughly amazed. She didn't even have to lift a finger thanks to her competent teammates. The nerd finds himself at the cusp of breaking down, roaring that it's their one and final chance to pass the exam. He tries to motivate his underlings that if they get caught here, it'll be game over for them. Rishal takes yet another bold step into his own demise and cuts his arm to draw out even more blood. The other commoners also follow his approach, understanding that there's nowhere left to run. Witnessing the sad scene, the princess pities them for trying so hard. The problem is, the scent of the lingering deer blood has drawn the attraction of multiple bears. This is alarming news because Ella spots at least 4 of these monstrous beasts coming their way. She'd yet to run into one of these beasts, and now that she's seen its terrifying face, it makes her wonder if they're even capable of inflicting damage against a monster like that. Ricky appears unafraid like the Chad he is, and activates his windsword ability to slice and dice all 4 of the bears with his sword. Yes, it's a freaking unbelievable sight, even for the nerd. Ella just can't fathom what happened, and remains speechless, while Ricky assures them that their plan was never going to go their way. She's starting to gain a good understanding of the man before her. This kid is on a completely different level from the rest. A little while after, Rishal and the other kids are captured and restrained, while Ricky starts to interrogate him about Tien, knowing that she was paired in his group. The shitty nerd creeps up a satisfying smile, and realizes that both siblings took part in the test. It brings him great joy to announce the death of both Urian and Tien, laughing at the difference between their levels compared to their siblings. In fact, the shitty nerd doubles down by saying that the bear must be enjoying its meal by now, which terrifies Ella for Urian's sake. Realizing that the situation is urgent, the princess wastes no time and orders Ricky to go and save them while he still can. Poor Poor Ella is devastated and wants to leave, but the princess recommends otherwise. Ella stops to question the princess's decision, and she makes her point with the angriest glare ever. The thing is, the princess fully understands her position right now, knowing what it's like to lose a family member, but at the same time she can't risk letting her get in Ricky's way. Well, in any case, Rishal is out here having the time of his life, snickering like a satisfied clown. Unfortunately, if things really did end up happening like this nerd describes, then the whole place would be a mess because monsters would quickly be drawn to the smell of blood. It's even likely that dozens of bears might be lingering around the same area, which is extremely risky. Though Ricky is someone who is built differently and can handle them all, the same can't be said for Ella, who will require his protection and eventually get in his way. That's why the princess wants her to have faith in him for now and stay put. The situation is unbearable. Frustration looms over Urian's sister, but she ultimately decides to stay. As for Ricky, the scene cuts to him speedrunning the forest, until he finally discovers his sister, who appears to be knocked out with a molar in her grasp. Suddenly, Ricky spots someone and stops dead in his tracks. It's our boy, except he's wearing a helmet. Urian is pleasantly surprised that Rishal didn't come for the molar, while Ricky quickly takes notice of the kid's black emblem. Then his eyes darted towards his unconscious sister. Quickly jumping to conclusions, Ricky thinks that this helmet kid is the one who reduced his sister to such a state. So in his anger, he lunges in for a sword slash, while Urian counters with his own blade. To Ricky's utter shock, his opponent was able to block his sword, the same confident slash that was cutting bears just earlier. Helmet Boy over here tells him that attacking out of the blue is dangerous, but all Ricky can think about is the kid's tremendously fast reaction speed. Tian's brother questions if Urian can survive this encounter after he's injured his sister. The thing about him is that his sword is drenched in magic, so it's even more powerful than a typical sword. Our boy tries to clear the misunderstanding, clarifying that he didn't do anything to his sister. In fact, he just wants an opportunity to talk, especially when there's a clear misunderstanding here. However, Ricky's emotions for his sister spiral out of control as he unleashes his wind technique, the same rupturing slash that annihilated everyone in his path. The attack is so surprisingly fast that even Urian is startled by it, though he manages to dodge and withstand it. Again, our boy emphasizes that Ricky's violent actions are extremely dangerous in a situation like this. Tian's brother prioritizes the safety of his sister and guards her body using a windshield technique. Next up, he addresses the man wearing the suspicious helmet. Ricky understands that he's dealing with a commoner, and also agrees that Urian may not be a remnant. However, the fact that our boy was able to dodge both of his slashes with incredible ability impresses Ricky, to the point he even shares his name and introduces himself as the eldest son of the Viscount's family. What makes a guy like him so special is that he serves a wind spirit. Even though Bro tried to introduce himself for maximum aura, Urian is left cringing because of that shitty introduction. Hilariously, he forgets about his secret identity for a second, and accidentally introduces himself as Yuri Sungung. Yes, Ricky even pronounces that joke of a name like it is real, and proceeds to ask one final question. With a murderous look on his face, the prodigious swordsman demands to know who was responsible for reducing his beloved sister to such a state. Our boy finds the constant use of wind annoying and recalls the instance that occurred. It wasn't actually the bear that knocked her out, but actually Urian himself. The problem is, when he confesses it to Tian's angry brother, who is already looking for an excuse to kill someone, he only ends up making Ricky even more pissed off. The swordsman releases a chaotic wind aura, chillingly declaring that he'll make sure to carve open that helmet next. Urian realizes that he only made the situation even worse instead of clarifying it. However, he doesn't want to waste time here because of his objective to obtain the molars, so he tries to make peace out of the fight, running the hell off to talk another day. Witnessing his monstrous speed leaves Ricky thoroughly impressed, so much so that it's starting to seem like he's facing a proper mid-level knight or someone even more skilled. At the same time, Ricky thinks he's analyzed our boy's fighting pattern well, so he tries to leap ahead of him with a sword, slash ready to connect. His blade is fast, tremendously fast, and is moments away from connecting with Urian's helmet. Having godlike confidence in his slashing ability, Ricky is firm on his belief that there is no way in hell his opponent avoided that attack. But to his utter shock, Urian vanished into thin air right after the attack. With his opponent nowhere to be found, the swordsman looks confused. Right as he wonders where Urian must have disappeared off to, our boy comes in with a clean karate chop from behind, knocking his ass out with just one move. Bro also reveals that all this time, he manipulated Ricky with his afterimage illusion, making him think that he landed an attack. The scene cuts off from there, and we get a perspective of the academy again. The entrance exam is concluded at last, and an announcement is made regarding the unfortunate incident of several candidates being sabotaged by others using the monsters. Thanks to the princess's personal involvement, she has made sure to take action against the acts, and the royal family is also investigating the incident in great detail. The headmaster has called for a meeting with the rest of the teachers of the academy, commending them for working hard for the sake of the students. The teachers are overall impressed by the quality of the candidates taking part in this year's exam. But contrary to Ji's words, one of the teachers strongly opposes her opinion, arguing that the nobles and the peasants just couldn't stop fighting with each other. Ji thinks Jerry's remarks are rude, and she even calls him out for his bullshit judgment of looking down on lower-class students. However, this arrogant prick doesn't really give a damn, and reveals the real nature of the school, where the nobles are supposed to exercise all of their power in the academy, as mentioned by the sage himself. Hearing her father's name in the conversation, Ji roars at him, until the headmaster finally breaks his silence and stops their argument. He wants his assistant to continue on with the rest of the information. The guy concludes that 29 candidates overall met the qualification criteria, and right as he's about to announce the top 10 examinees, the scene transitions to the candidate's point of view. They're eagerly staring down at the results board. Without question, first position has been safely secured by the majestic Princess Saruti. Taking second place is Ricky of the Wind Spirit Tribe, who is rather disappointed that he can't see Yuri Sungsung's name here. Coming in third place is an unexpected fellow called Jade, who is known to be a magic swordsman. Sharing fourth and fifth places are the twin sisters Sia and Mu, who seem to have so much confidence in their teamwork that they think they would have easily secured first place if it was a team analysis. Securing sixth place is the scarlet-haired commoner, Ella, who is incredibly happy to have secured a spot for herself. At the same time, she's worried where Urian disappeared off to. Seventh place is reserved for the shitty noble Chris, who is just seething at the realization that a commoner scored higher than him. Bro's ego is so fickle that he thinks that Ella cheated to get a higher score. Eighth place is for this weirdo hooligan called Rizo, who seems pissed off about taking the test in the first place. Coming in ninth is Princess Saruti's #1 fangirl Hina. And finally, there's the 10th place, reserved for a dude with hair covering his eyes. He's called Goliath, and damn, that's so much cooler than something like Chris. Let's talk about the ones who scored outside of the top 10 criteria. 24th place is for Tien, who feels incredibly relieved to have passed. Though she's delighted by her brother's second place, she's genuinely worried for Urian. At long last, our sneaky little murder machine is spotted sweating bullets, realizing that he fucked up big time. That's right, he couldn't even secure last place, and ended up failing the test even after securing himself the molar. His downfall can be credited to his performance in the first and second tests. Anyway, Ella rushes to his side after learning that he fell into some kind of trap. She wanted to run after him, but then things got complicated. The little brother assures her that he's fine, and instead of focusing on himself, he shifts the spotlight to his sister, admiring her for sixth place. Especially when securing a position in the top 10 list gets you special privileges. Ella is happy, but she credits her position down to her luck, and surprisingly reveals an interesting piece of information. She's not gonna enroll. Urian is shocked as his sister suggests enrolling again next year, as their promise was to enroll together instead of leaving each other behind. The emotional moment between the siblings is interrupted by the shitty laugh of the ugly Chris, who is genuinely happy that they've come to this suggestion. Bro keeps on laughing even though Urian and Ella are staring at him in confusion. For a moment, just a tiny moment, Chris stops, making you wonder if he's finally gained some self-awareness. But no, this little bastard starts up like a dying pigeon 2 seconds later, laughing so much that it's even making Urian contemplate beating his ass. But let's go back to the main office, where Ji throws up a strong objection after hearing the results from the list. The headmaster doesn't understand her complaint, believing that the results went just as they expected them to. The mage teacher argues that she doesn't care about the top 10 list. The one person she specifically cares about is Urian, who apparently failed the exam. Even though he's the younger brother of the talented Ella, he didn't make the cut because they suspect that he wasn't responsible for defeating the bear. This is backed up by Walmart Aizawa, confirming that the kid's swordsmanship is nothing compared to his sister. But that's exactly when Ji interjects with her own thoughts, believing that Urian in fact has a bottomless talent for magic. Suddenly, the assistant of the academy comes around in a rush to make an immediate and urgent announcement, clarifying that one final examinee will also be admitted with the rest of the students. This fills up the applicants' hope, making them question if it's them who acquired that special spot. To everyone's shock, Urian's name is announced as the magic major. The announcement forces Chris and his goons straight into depression, because yet again, they can't believe that a peasant has been admitted to the academy instead of them. Ella is genuinely happy for her little brother, because now they'll finally be able to enroll together without any complications. Meanwhile, our boy is processing the shock of what happened. To explore what really went down, let's go back to the office, where Ji stood her ground, defending Urian's position as the kid who boasts tremendous potential. She brought up the boy's immense magic power capable of destroying the device. But not just that. What she saw in that brief moment is how Urian actively limited the scope of his own power to make sure that no one else was hurt in the process. This means that the kid has a crazy level of control over his own abilities too. She thinks that failing someone like him would cost a great deal to the kingdom and its interests. In response, the edgy teacher speaks against Urian's admission, recalling how Tien is the one who saved his life in the exam, according to the report they received. This means that the boy is unfit for real-world experience, which will cost them in the long run. But Ji doesn't concede, and stands her ground that the one place that can grant such students some real-life experience is the Magic Academy. If they can allow the kid to enter the school, he could rise up to become one of the greatest talents the Academy has ever seen. Of course, this kind of remark is skeptical for Jerry, who looks down on commoners and thinks that it's pointless to allow a lowlife to join their prestigious school. Ji stands on business and roars at the professor, strongly believing that it's actually the discriminating teacher himself who doesn't deserve a spot in this academy. Once again, the headmaster roaringly interrupts with a deafening tone, and hilariously kills his assistant's ears in the process. He concludes that the Magic Academy is indeed an excellent safe haven to nourish talented students irrespective of status. With that view in mind, he sides with Ji's opinion, believing that she is one of the truest heroic magicians the Academy has ever seen. The fact that someone like her admires a potential student so much implies that it's unwise for them to let go of Urian. Of course, Jerry's bitch face tells you everything that he's not pleased about the situation. The headmaster ultimately uses his authority as the Academy's principal to accept Urian as a magic major under the cover of a special admission. At the same time, he raises a sharp condition that if the boy is unable to produce quality results in the time that he's given, then he will ultimately meet expulsion for being unfit. But that doesn't really matter for now because Ella and Urian are celebrating with great joy. As for Ricky, Bro is still depressed over Yuri Sung Sung, and actually compares the kid's height to Urian's, believing that he was the same height. Suddenly our boy remembers that this is the same swordsman that he fought back in the bear examination test, the one he knocked out. This is a nightmare situation for Urian, because this dude is actually the closest to knowing the truth about his secret. However, the swordsman walks away recalling Urian's results at the sword test, believing that he's far too weak to compare to the likes of the guy he fought. Ella has no idea what happened just now, while our boy is just glad that the situation didn't explode on him. The very next day, the top 10 students as well as the special admission student are announced to be in the advanced class. It's their first day at the academy, and Ella is as nervous as a stick. The moment they pop open the door, their eyes are peeled to a luxurious setting, where the top rankers are loafing around at their seats. There's the princess and Ricky, as well as the rest of the top rankers. Some of them immediately spot the commoners entering the room, while Ella is so stunned that she doesn't even know where they should sit. Urian, on the other hand, finds himself excited at the idea of receiving education in his new world, though of course, he understands that the educational threshold for this era will be much less advanced compared to the technological world he came from. One guy arrives right after them, and it's the borderline serial killer Rizzo, who orders them to move. Ella quickly allows him to pass, while our boy starts to wonder if this dude is going to become the class bully. Seeing Rizzo arrive, Chris raises an issue over his late arrival, roaring at him for holding a low standard compared to the commoners who arrived even sooner than him. The thing is, this crazy kid doesn't really give a damn and just ends up calling Chris a bastard. Flexing his positional ranking, the blonde noble reminds him that he's one rank greater than Rizzo, which gives him an immediate authority to demean and order him not to come late from now on. As you can expect, Rizzo is stunned for a second, and questions if Chris is confident in his strength just because he's one rank higher. Bro gets up in his damn face and promises the blonde noble that he's more than ready to prove his real abilities beyond the scope of a simple test. In fact, Rizzo is ready to bury Chris under the ground for it. It's the first day, and the situation is already this heated, as even Ella takes notice of their argument. Paying no mind and attention, Urian remains cool and recommends they take their spot. The rest of the advanced class members, Hina, Jade, and Goliath, also observe the scene. Jade is the beaming blue boy who is happy to see our duo for some reason. Anyway, the siblings make themselves comfortable on the exquisite and comfortable chairs. Jade makes it his pleasure to welcome them with an open heart. In response, Ella shares her name too, though she's being very formal about it. The Charisma King assures her that there's no need to act stiff as their classmates. He even admires the commoners in some regard, because it's the first time in the school's history for a commoner to take a seat in the advanced class. While they're talking, Urian can barely hold on to his laugh, internalizing how Jade is actually trying way too hard. The rank 3 student turns his attention to address our boy next, greeting him politely. Hilariously, Urian gives him a free pass by revealing that he's not even Ella's biological brother. For some reason, the remark really pisses him off, breaking Jade's cool composure as he clutches his fist and praises Ella for her brilliance as a sword fighter. Though he can sing praises for her, Jade finds himself getting irked regarding Urian's capabilities and wonders how the kid will manage to keep up with the advanced class. Our boy merely smiles at him in response. At this point, the whole place is on fire with the number of heated arguments that are taking place. In the next scene, we get to see the siblings walking back, talking about how they barely did anything on the first day. Urian understands that their true classes will kick off from tomorrow, so he's really looking forward to the experience. His sister finds herself lost in thought, admiring how they're finally at the school of their dreams. She wants the both of them to share a lovely time together until their other siblings can catch up. Well, their sweet talk is interrupted by a bunch of senior classmen bullies, ridiculing the commoners for being here. They can't fathom how these two were able to join the school at all, so much so that the shitty nobles wonder if the standards for the exam dropped for this year. Of course, as they're talking shit right in our boy's face, Urian can't help but feel pleasure at the sight of senior mobsters looking down on the hidden strength character. The second-year punks remind the newbies to greet them properly as senior classmen. Ella appears extremely nervous and tries to greet them, all the while protecting her brother. But these punks don't really care about a simple greeting. Instead, they make an outrageous demand for the girl to strip her clothes, as she is undeserving of the noble attire. Forcing his hand, one of the punks grabs our boy, trying his best to intimidate him. But to his shock, no matter how much strength he exerts, he just can't seem to lift Urian off of his feet. The punk can't fathom how a kid like him is so heavy, while Urian simply looks at him with a cute smile, showing no signs of fear. In the distance, Jade comes up rushing to the scene, addressing the second-year punks that the academy isn't a place to discriminate against others. Ella tries to help her brother out, who actually finds the whole thing quite fun. Jade walks up to the senior classmen, pleading to let the first year go as their actions are lowering the reputation of the academy. This remark pisses off the second years, and in response, the bastard brute literally backhands Ella across her face. Jade is terrified seeing the girl get struck so hit, and even for Urian, this scene is fucking frustrating, because he can't believe that a simple trash mob dared to strike his sister down. In the next scene, we meet a top-tier baddie. Haiwan is the hero resident of the academy, and she's responsible for coaching the advanced class. The headmaster is grateful for her contributions, while Haiwan doesn't think much of it because she's got not much else to do. Her straightforward and cold attitude makes the headmaster laugh, and reveals that the advanced class for this year will probably be one of the greatest reasons for the history of the school. Straight away, the honey-eyed teacher realizes that he's talking about the siblings. Of course, even after many nobles rejected the approach, the kids were still granted a special admission into the advanced class. Ella's position is rightful because of her excellent swordsmanship, as they discovered her subconscious infusion of mana with her blade. Of course, if she was a noble, she would have earned that spot right away without any object. The headmaster agrees to that idea, but what really intrigues Haiwan is the mention of Ella's brother, who doesn't show any promise. Of course, Ji stated otherwise and tried to speak in favor of the child, but still it doesn't tell them anything about the kid's abilities. And yet, even after that, the headmaster still went ahead and ended up awarding him as a special admissions student. This means that he has a greater goal aligned behind his vision, linked to the purpose of the academy. Hearing her thoughts, the headmaster curiously quizzes the hero resident, inquiring if the current system is operating well. Because even though the Magic Academy is supposed to be a place where talent is nurtured equally, the reality is that the nobles simply use it as an institution to rise to greater power. This means that unless they're able to fix the system, the kingdom will inevitably meet its collapse. Haiwan recalls how the only thing she has known since her childhood is her knowledge of fighting. She's the best at it. So she trusts the headmaster's judgment and vision for the system's future. At the same time, she points his attention to the window, which shows a clear view of Urian being bullied by one of the senior classmen. The headmaster is horrified and wants to intervene at once, but the curious Haiwan stops him, believing that this is a great opportunity for them to observe. After all, she's curious to know more about this secret meaning that the headmaster sees. Back to the scene of the fight. The arrogant upperclassman has just taken down Ella, much to Urian and Jade's shock. The little brother quickly frees himself and dashes to catch his sister, while the rank 3 Jade steps in to take over in their stead. He wants the boy to take his sister to the infirmary, because he's done playing around and wants to teach these arrogant fools a lesson by reporting them to the department. Being called a bunch of bastards pisses off one of them. But here's the really terrifying part. The musclehead is out here frightened in shock, questioning how the hell the pipsqueak managed to escape his grasp in the flash of a second. The boy stares at his sister's bloodied face. You see, when the bastard senior classman attacked Ella, he actually infused his punch with mana, displaying complete psycho behavior even for a trash mob. Urian genuinely wants to beat the crap out of him for hurting his sister, but unfortunately he can't reveal his powers at all. The fight between the arrogant Grant and Jade kicks off in a show of strength. The punk is shocked that even though the scrawny kid has a smaller size than him, but for some reason he's still capable of matching his strength. Unable to do anything, the bastard calls for his friend Nigel to unleash his magic, believing that it's important for them to restore their respect as the seniors of the school. The second-year student is about to use his magical wand, when Jade warns him about the forbidden restriction about using magic in school grounds. As for Urian, the kid simply tells Jade to step aside, and also continues healing his sister in the process. Jade begs him to leave, while our boy shocks everyone by revealing that he's already healed his sister, so there's nothing to worry about. The very mention of healing is so shocking in fact that even Hee-won and the headmaster are speechless. Ella regains her senses at last, as her brother assures her that she's okay now. And now you must be wondering, shouldn't Urian be suffering the after effects of his power being exposed? For that, let's actually explore his thoughts on how he managed to develop a technique to hide his power. Surprisingly though, the senior classmen are practically shivering upon seeing his healing magic, and have almost given up from the sight. Hee-won curiously asks if the headmaster chose to enroll the child specifically because he knew about his healing powers, even though we all know that isn't the case at all. For some reason, our boy can't comprehend why everyone appears so shocked and fixated on him. Jade is at a loss for words, questioning how Ella has been restored back to full health. Urian tries his best to reason, revealing that he simply healed her. It appears that he's yet to understand the brilliance of healing magic in his world. So let's zoom out for a second and talk about it briefly. Healing magic is supposed to be a recovery to heal injuries. Of course, even if it's the case, it still requires at least 5 to 15 minutes to complete. Even when it comes to the best mages, they can't do it for less than 5 minutes. And Urian? The kid literally pulled off a display of instant healing right before everyone's eyes. This is terrible, terrible news for him as the realization strikes him like a thunderbolt. All of a sudden, even Nigel is impressed by Urian's capabilities, while his friend is seething with rage. Hilariously, Jade is offended too, because Bro was going to use this chance to actually show off in front of Ella. Our glorious Queen Hee-won arrives at the scene, stopping the fight at once. The rest of them can't even fathom how she appeared so fast, but it seems like Urian already caught on a while ago that someone was secretly watching them. The woman's interest is in the boy, and even as cold as she is, Hee-won can't help but smile, intrigued by the talented batch that enrolled this year. She chooses not to punish them since they're still in the phase of an entrance ceremony. Basically, the punk goes away unpunished and plans to take his revenge some other day. The scene transitions to the glorious dorm rooms that both Ella and Urian are given as part of the advanced class. Our boy is excited like a puppy, laughing in joy, while Ella feels a bit disappointed. She actually had no idea that he possessed such a tremendous amount of talent, especially when it comes to instantaneous healing, something totally unheard of. Urian tries to ignore it as best he can, and acts like he didn't know his skills were that special either. The poor girl feels a bit underwhelmed in her own abilities, dwarfed in comparison to her brother's skills. She thinks that one day, they'll end up drifting apart because of their varying skills. Her words actually cause Urian to get upset, but Ella decides to maintain her optimism and assures him that she's going to try her absolute best from now on. After all, both of them share the advanced class, and they'll be supporting each other until the end. Happy to hear his sister's words, Urian reinforces the thought and agrees to grow together. The scene cuts to the following day, where Hee-won is interviewing the students and introducing herself as the homeroom teacher of their class. Hina is dazzled by the hero resident's appearance, while the Goliath is realizing what it really means to be in the advanced class. Urian is astonished that the same woman they met yesterday ended up being their teacher. Starting off, their teacher reminds them of the soft and cozy feeling the students must have felt in their rooms, as they're all luxurious and exclusive for the advanced class. Naturally, this also means that the students who couldn't enter the advanced class were exempt from having such privileges. But not just that, the pretty attire that they'll wear, and the remarkable food they'll get to eat, as well as having access to excellent facilities at their disposal. Everything is a reward for earning a spot in the advanced class. Maintaining one's position in this class means that they'll continue to enjoy such luxuries without any problems. She says all of those promising things, and finally brings up the real kicker, the demotion system. The demotion system ensures that any student who fails to meet the minimum grade threshold will result in expulsion from the advanced class. And that means they'll be demoted, as the seats are reserved for the best of the best. The even more shocking part is that not even a single candidate was able to maintain their position in the advanced class just last year. This means graduating from this class is immeasurably difficult. While some are terrified, Urian is excited and hopes to see what will happen. Their teacher initiates the first class and starts scribbling on the board. But to our boy's shock, Hee-won seems to have written something promising. Let's break down the advanced class criteria. You see, there's an evaluation system called the Excellence Evaluation, and it's based on an absolute evaluation instead of the typical curve. Because of that, the number of students in each advanced class year is different and shrinks over time. The students who shared the advanced class are known for getting exceptional support and a promising career right after graduation. It's the best thing one could ask for, but at the same time, the moment their grades start falling flat, chaos ensues as they'll receive instant demotion back to the ordinary class. All of that honor and prestige that they could have received from the superior class would vanish into dust. And just like Hee-won explained, the number of students that graduated from the advanced class year was a miserable 0. That means it's incredibly difficult to imagine that our protagonist, who is supposed to keep a low profile, will get the chance to graduate from this class. But let's not worry about that and focus on the teacher's writing. The kids are shocked, because their first class is actually nothing more than basic math. It's the duplication of numbers, something that terrifies Chris as he begs to ask a question. The idiot worriedly asks why they have to learn math in a prestigious academy where magic and swords reign supreme. To that, the gorgeous-eyed teacher asks why he's so interested in learning magic. The blonde noble reveals that he wants to become just as powerful as a magician like she is, and so that he can one day help the kingdom. That's a perfect standard answer for anyone, and their teacher agrees with that. But there's one glaring error in the boy's approach. The thing is, in order to become stronger, one doesn't just require mana or swordsmanship in this world, but rather the most powerful weapon of all, knowledge. If one can muster knowledge to a brilliant degree, they'll easily surpass their previous potential. Of course, the idea is lost on these students, who still don't get the point. To demonstrate what she means, Hyeon casts a simple fire spell on the tip of her finger, questioning how she would approach making it bigger. The obvious answer comes from Chris, who tells her to inject more mana. But when Hyeon does that, that same little fire transforms into a raging column of flames. The teacher confirms this train of thought and explains that normally, one would heed the same approach and inject more mana. Chris is out here getting arrogant because of one answer he got right. Meanwhile, the teacher continues what would happen if one isn't able to inject more mana into the same spell. This time, she quizzes Hina, who nervously responds that if one doesn't have more mana to inject into the spell, it's necessary to use other sorcerers to support one's magic. But this is once again a problem. Though it's always possible, Hyeon believes that it's not reliable, because in her view, the best way to cast a bigger fire spell without infusing more mana is to actually combine it with a wind spell. She beautifully demonstrates how those two tiny spells can end up releasing a tremendously powerful fire tornado, even more powerful than the injection of mana. Thanks to the nature of magic, fire interacting with wind makes it more powerful. In Urian's scientific terms, this is a combustion reaction. That is the power of having knowledge, the reason why an excellent mage simply can't rely on a cookie-cutter approach like injecting more mana. Hence, she points to the board, emphasizing the importance of learning. Hyeon prepares the class for their first simple test. A while passes, and we see the students scribbling down some notes until their teacher tells them to stop. Next up, she wants to check their answers by matching them with the answer sheet. To her surprise, 3 students acquired perfect scores, which is a huge problem for Chris because Bro realizes he's not one of them. Of those that landed a perfect score, there is Princess Saruti, whose performance dazzles her #1 fangirl. The second perfect scorer is surprisingly and shockingly Rizzo, the man sitting right next to Chris. This is genuinely funny, because despite being the idiot scoundrel that he is, there's no way for someone like him to achieve a perfect score. Bro is out here sweating bullets as Rizzo pops up from behind like Diddy and wonders if the blonde noble failed to get a perfect score. The same perfect upperclassman who is supposed to come early and become an example for them all. The same clown who got 7th place. Rizzo leaves a chilling reminder to Chris that their class ranking will change every month, and though he's uninterested in ranks, he freaks the shit out of Chris and tells him to try harder next time. God damn, this man really got humbled like that. Hyeon waits for a moment before announcing Urian's name as the last person who acquired a perfect score. The fact that he landed such a score surprises the other nobles, but terrifies Chris even more. His own sister is astonished, while our boy is out here snickering like an evil villain, acting like he just solved quantum physics or some shit. Bro confidently recalls his time being in high school, where he excelled at the educational curriculum. To him, this simple math problem is nothing to worry about. Bro thinks he's about to finesse the educational section of the school. Meanwhile, the nobles like Jade are intrigued by Urian's ability and are motivated to do better than him. Their teacher commences the end of the simple tests, emphasizing that it's time for them to receive a reward. Holding a single badge in her hand, she casts a multiplication spell and shoots the badges right over to their desks, instructing them to attach it to their uniform. Thanks to this badge, they'll have authority to use any facility in the school. An example of this is the exquisite meal section, reserved for the advanced class. And for the commoners like Urian and Ella, this is basically a dream come true, especially because of their poor backgrounds. They're seen enjoying the perfect meat, genuinely happy to gain the privileges of remaining in the advanced class. Both of them want to stay in the advanced class just because of the meal section alone. The siblings promise to work as hard as they can to maintain high scores. Shortly after the meal break, their next class is stationed to be the monster hunting class. Hyun, as their teacher, expresses that this class is important and will have a determined impact on their grades. If they perform terribly, they might receive a risk of demotion. Blazing with motivation and confidence, Ella intends to take first place because there's no way she's about to give up on Gordon Ramsay's cooking. At the same time, the hero resident emphasizes that the first years are still inexperienced to hunt monsters by themselves. Because of that, she's brought in a bunch of seniors from the upper class to help them out on this mission. And what do you know? They're the same insufferable scumbags who bullied Urian and Ella earlier. Hyeon explains that teamwork is necessary for this exam, as it will be incorporated into their grades, which is even worse news for Urian, who realizes his grades are about to get destroyed. The senior classmen arrogantly greet the inexperienced freshmen, reminding everyone that teamwork is important. These snobbish fools also threaten to report the freshmen in case they misbehave, causing a dent on their grades. It's safe to say that our trio isn't looking forward to this test, as even Jade apologizes to both Urian and Ella, recommending that they follow them for the time being. Even though it's a shitty feeling to be paired with these assholes, it's necessary in order for them to maintain their spot in this class. The scarlet-haired girl expresses the same sentiment, but at the same time, she's suspicious of this garbage duo, because it's clear they're gonna plot something to ruin their grades. Our boy can't even stand the sight of them snickering in the distance, and refuses to let anything happen to his precious score. But then suddenly he comes up with a plan. Addressing them as his respected seniors, he leans into the idea of making a bet with them. It's a surprising yet offensive offer from a peasant, as the arrogant seniors think that our boy can't do anything anyway. But Urian continues to tempt them, emphasizing that they'll show them just how capable they are. Urian is more than happy to show them the capabilities of his skill. Offended, one of the seniors quickly grabs the barrel of weapons and tosses it right at the freshmen, urging them to quickly grab their weapons. After all, they're going to be having a mock battle, and if the freshmen win against the seniors, they'll be acknowledged. The creepy fuck tries to intimidate them by adding that they're using real weapons in this fight, so if they get hurt, that's on them. After all, not a single teacher will be able to predict whether the students got hurt by a human or another monster, adding another layer of worry. At first, Urian acts like he's a scared little boy, who is terrified of the idea of fighting them. Nigel is enjoying the sight of fear, but funnily enough, all three of the freshmen go from being afraid to acting like they're in Disneyland. This is actually everything they ever wanted in the first place. In fact, Ella is so excited to pick a sword and get started already, leaving their intimidation tactics to dust. The seniors are ridiculed to the point they don't even want to hold back anymore. In the next scene, the fight kicks off between Ella and the bastard who struck her last time. But to his horror, the girl can hold her ground pretty well. And not just that, she's capable of infusing her sword with mana. Urian's sister is annoyed that she was helpless yet again when it came to protecting her brother. It's because the situation overwhelmed her nerves and broke her composure, and that's the same reason she refuses to let herself break today. A big guy over here begs Nigel for a protection spell, so the mage quickly casts a defensive spell called the Super Armor. This ability greatly enhances one's strength. But while Nigel is distracted, Jade comes flying right in from behind, and with a simple swipe of his blade, he severs the magic staff in a clean cut. Nigel is left terrified and confused, until he sees Jade whipping out his godlike demonic sword. I'm not even gonna lie, that sword looks cool as hell. The rank 3 freshman returns his sword to the shadows and reminds his seniors that it's wise to always strike the mage in a fight. This means the ugly big guy is the only person left in the fight. Now that he's driven to a corner, Bro becomes a pussy and tries to target Urian. But as he's charging ahead, Ella bolts into motion to stop him. The charging clown grows closer and closer to the mysterious boy, who doesn't even flinch for a second. Letting out a smile, Urian releases a hint of his engulfing black aura, terrifying the brute to the point he can't even move. But in a plot twist, before anything could even happen, Urian is attacked by a gigantic monster without his knowledge. The creature extends its claws to kill Urian, but in a decisive moment, it's Ella who rushes in to save her little brother, sacrificing herself in the process. The creature's slash hurt her pretty badly, leaving a prominent wound that even infuriates her teammate. Jade spirals into action by activating the second form of his demonic sword. The transformed helix blade is so damn devastating that it annihilates the creature's skull with a single attack, leaving its remains splattered on the ground. As for the cocky piece of filth, he's having it hard to stomach that a freshman was able to kill the monster with just a single attack, even though the peasant girl got injured badly. But then he sees her brother Urian instantly healing her wounds like nothing even happened. The boy's command over instantaneous healing rocks his world, as the bastard finally gets an understanding of what it's like to be in the advanced class. Humbly accepting his defeat, the brute concedes the bet in their victory, declaring that they won't be causing any more trouble. However, the big guy takes issue with Urian, arguing that his healing spell is the only thing that makes him special. Even Nigel swoops in and continues the trash talk, emphasizing how the white-haired boy would be helpless in any other situation. Their continuous trash talk annoys Ella quite a bit. However, Urian doesn't really take offense as they've made a good amount of progress. Let's change the scene and visit Hwon's side, who reveals that the test was never intended to be a joint operation to begin with. She is basically complaining against the second-year teachers, who act like they have the authority to flip the switch at the last minute. Hwon questions if that's really how things operate, and if they're even capable of influencing such a decision in the middle of a class. In response, they nervously assure her to trust everything to the second years, who will be a great support to the freshmen. Still, Hwon reflects on her clear concerns. A simple theoretical class shifting into a monster hunting class is out of the ordinary, And then these clowns are also trying to act like she doesn't know anything because it's her first time. Sensing their intention right off the bat, Haiwan pleasantly amuses the idea that her students won't get hurt then, seeing as they're being protected by the reliable seniors. All they can do in response is nervously laugh, which only goes to confirm her doubts even more. Hee-won doesn't like it that these guys have the intention of messing around with her students. Amusing the possibility of what she should do to them, Haiwan lets out a small percentage of her presence, dominating the scene and sending down shivers among the other teachers. For now, Haiwan lets it go, curious to see how things will play out, and entrusting her talented students to handle everything. Let's go back to the scene of the hunting class. Apparently, the big guy brought Jade back to his leader, assuring that the rest of the commoners didn't follow them. Something about the situation terrifies the demonic sword user, who has yet to comprehend why he was called out here alone. Sitting in front of him is a confident and creepy kid along with the rest of his goons. This kid belongs to the advanced class of the second year, and he's at the top of the ranks too. At present, the second year class is often considered the Devil's Den, specifically because of one kid. It's Laryl, who maintains his ultimate authority over everyone, and scored the highest in last year's ceremony. Back at the entrance ceremony, this kid actually treated even the other nobles as a joke, demanding them. Similar to this year, last year's advanced class was no different in terms of seats. Well, until this crazy bastard decided to beat every single one of his classmates until they were near death. 3 of the 9 he beat up ended up surrendering and managed to remain in the advanced class, while the rest were taken to the hospital. So in total, only 4 students exist in the second year advanced class, and all of them are Laryl's lackeys who are brutal in their ways. That begs the question that Jade has been meaning to ask. He doesn't understand why all of them are here of all places. Laryl demands his attention and talks about how he's heard of Jade's family background before arriving here. The child who belongs to the demonic sword family carries immeasurable responsibility in his hands, because if he doesn't graduate from the advanced class, his family will face utter collapse. Let's explore the kid's background by going back into the past. The boy's father became enraged at the idea of using a magic tool instead of demonic swords. He hated those who tried to use mana swords and acted superior. Unfortunately, with the advancement of magic wands spreading throughout the kingdom, anyone could command the use of magic thanks to special weapons. Because of that, the demonic sword family began to wane and collapse. The boy's father rested all of their hopes in the boy's hands, begging Jade to succeed and graduate from the advanced class. Because if he manages to do that, the world will know that the demonic sword family is still important. The kid's father didn't even think about the weight of the responsibility and shoved all of his problems on Jade, reminding the boy that everyone will die if he fails to graduate successfully. Now, Laryl somehow knows about this information and even offers to allow Jade to graduate from the advanced class. This is a surprising offer, as the boy fails to comprehend what that means. To clarify his offer, Laryl explains that the advanced class is carefully being monitored by people of immeasurable wealth and power, and those such people actually assign this bastard a mission, guaranteeing the graduation of Laryl from the advanced class as long as they complete the mission. Basically, these mysterious higher-ups are so powerful that helping kids graduate from the advanced class is nothing to them. Jade is excited at the idea of hearing what Laryl has to say, who proceeds to get to his main point and tells Jade to go to his commoner friends with a set of new instructions. He even emphasizes that this mission is much easier than trying to graduate from the class the normal way. After all, this is going to help the demonic sword family preserve their place in the world. Playing him like a fiddle, Laryl sends Jade back to his friends, with instructions that are intentionally kept hidden for now. The kid returns to his friends, who are worried for his health and wonder if he's okay. They're curious where the rest of the seniors went, but little do they know, Jade is winding up a spell in his grasp. Right as Ella finds herself distracted, the manipulated Jade whips out his demonic sword in an effort to slash her body. Thankfully, our boy manages to step in and protects his sister. Urian calls out his bullshit and thinks that this is a terrible joke, if anything. By the way, Jade appears to have caged them in a cell surrounded by his swords. He warns Urian to be careful with any funny ideas, because the demonic blades are actually pulsing with high-voltage energy, and it's so dangerous that even a single touch will scar you for life. Shocked, Urian is impressed by Jade's command over the demonic sword, deeming him to be quite skilled with his technique. The boy addresses both of the commoner siblings and apologizes to them, begging them to stay put for a while. After all, his kind seniors have just told him that he can actually steal all of the points for himself. Jade's greed and desperation is getting the better of him, as he refuses to demote from the advanced class, no matter the cost. He doesn't really think it's a big deal for commoners like the two of them to drop out instead. He even promises to save them right after the hunting period ends. All this time, Urian observes him like a hawk, wondering what happened. Now let's go back to Laryl's side of things shortly after this scene. This guy is beating the shit out of Jade for failing his command. You see, he actually ordered him to cut off all their limbs, but instead, the rank 3 freshman simply caged them and left. Laryl gives him a good beatdown and wonders if Jade is trying to disobey the commands of his superiors. Let's go back for a moment when Jade actually received his mission from Laryl, who instructed him to cut off the siblings' limbs. The very idea frightened the boy, but Laryl assured him that the higher-ups actually disapprove of commoners attending the school, so this is an important mission. The only mission they've received for now is to kill the commoners from the advanced class. Oh, and here's the worst part. The teachers actually can't even intervene or come look for them, because the higher-ups made sure to gather all of them in a separate location just to execute this operation. The bottom line is, Laryl wants to execute this mission in full swing, which is why he assigns Jade this tremendous task, so that he can earn respect in the eyes of the higher-ups. The kid has a family to save, and the pressure was getting to him. That brings us back to the present, to the boy who disobeyed his first orders and ended up getting brutally beaten for it. Laryl fails to comprehend the freshman's emotions, questioning if he really even wants to graduate from the advanced class at this point. After all, he's going to such absurd lengths just to save a bunch of peasants who don't even matter. Annoyed, Jade finally grows a spine and roars at the bastard that they're not just peasants, but his friends. And he says it with an intimidating glare too. Laryl reminds him that it's only been 2 days since they met each other, so there's no point in acting like they have a relationship to save here. Enraged, the demonic sword user roars that he's not doing it because they're close, but because Ella's tremendous ability with her sword deserves every right to be in the class. And when it comes to her brother, though he's shitty in swordsmanship and magic, one thing about the boy is clear: he is smart. Even now, Jade predicts that the boy will grow up to become a prosperous young man, one who will guide his kingdom to success. And that's excluding his god-tier instant healing ability, which is going to earn praise and love from the injured in the kingdom. Jade earns his spot as an epic character in my heart as he supports both of his friends, believing that they are the Academy's future to come. They're greater than any shitty noble who tries to flex their status. Hearing those words, Laryl actually finds himself agreeing with Jade's opinion to some extent. At the same time, he lowers himself and promises the kid that his family will know nothing other than despair if he continues on with this. After all, if he's defying orders from a noble like him already, then Jade's family is destined to experience utter collapse. The same goes for Jade's precious little siblings, who rest their hopes entirely on their older brother's success. I think I'm really enjoying this conflict. The idea that Jade knows that he has to succeed for his family, but at the same time, chooses to be good. This is how you write a character. Anyway, memories of his siblings come crashing down in his mind. The boy's siblings wanted their father to smile again and be happy now that Jade was going to attend the magic school. Their supportive older brother assured them that they just have to sit tight and believe in him, promising that he'll graduate from the advanced class. The thoughts of his family flesh out in his mind, while Laryl uses the boy's guilt and desperation against him, urging Jade to hold his hand and side with him on this mission. If he can do just that, he'll be able to prioritize his own family's future instead of the kingdom's success. After all, it's not like his little siblings deserve a tragic fate. In the end, Laryl emphasizes that the commoners will die, one way or another. No teacher will come save them either, so there's no point in resisting. If he can just go and kill his friends, Laryl assures him that he'll take care of the rest. He even extends his hand to the desperate boy, promising that they'll be rich nobles living successful lives after this. At first, it seems like Jade is giving in to his shitty circumstances, but then this Giga-Chad kid swats Laryl's hand like a true hero, cursing the bastard to get lost as he would never do that. To Jade, his friends matter just as much as his family, and he refuses to compromise for either side. His response actually leaves Laryl shocked. He declares that Jade will come to regret picking a fight with him. Let's go over a brief understanding of the current situation. Right now, the second-year students who came in the effort to assassinate the commoners found themselves in a surprising predicament when Jade showed his resilience. Unfortunately, even Jade knows that despite his own strength, the senior standing before him is undeniably strong. In this situation, the best chance of victory he's got is sticking to a clever strategy, knowing that he can't let these bastards get away with what they want. Everything rests on his shoulders because if these guys somehow manage to defeat him, then they'll go after his friends to kill them. Chillingly enough, the frightening noble declares that he's going to stab Jade 10 times before moving past his way to kill the siblings himself. His weapon of choice appears to be a short dagger, astonishing Jade. The fight kicks off when Jade experiences a feeling unlike any other. In the span of a single second, his opponent not only closed the distance, but also stabbed Jade right in his chest. The brutal pain paralyzes him for a moment, while Laryl remarks how swords used to be his weapon of choice, up until he realized that using daggers is more enjoyable for him to massacre his opponents. With the first stab dealt, he tosses away the freshman, reminding him that 9 more attempts remain. The rest of his lackeys are discussing Laryl's frighteningly strong ability, the ability to seal one's movement. That's actually the reason how he was able to overcome the students of his own class. Though they refused to surrender, they were ultimately defeated. In Laryl's case, there is no fight. Instead, it's a one-sided massacre in every duel he shares. To make the situation more playful and torturous, Laryl offers a 10-second countdown before initiating his next stab. He slowly marks down the clock, while Jade recalls the feeling of being completely frozen before being stabbed. With the countdown running down, Jade uses this opportunity to activate the fourth form of his manifested shadow sword. The shadow whip manages to make its way to Laryl, who casually blocks it like it's nothing. As soon as the countdown ends, he attempts to use his movement sealing ability against Jade. Once again, the stab connects as Jade casually emerges from behind, stabbing him in his upper back. The seething pain on Jade's face is a rewarding and amusing sight for this sadistic psychopath. He decides to go for another countdown while the guy is practically shivering in pain. The countdown reaches its final few seconds, as Jade unleashes his third form called Spear, hoping to catch his opponent by overwhelming him with numbers. The spears are actually quite impressive in the eyes of Laryl's underlings, who think that Jade is indeed an incredible talent from the new batch. However, things aren't looking so great for him, because Laryl ends up stabbing him painfully from the back of his hand, again sending shivers of pain across his body. The torture ensues as the merciless noble initiate his countdown. The scene cuts back to the siblings, who are still trapped because of the high-voltage swords. Ella and Urian both share the same opinion that the mention of the monopolization of the score is a lie. Urian's sister worries about Jade's condition, knowing that the seniors must be threatening him or something. Our boy is actually confident that Jade will easily be able to handle the threat if it's the same two clowns from earlier, but in his heart, he's getting a tremendously bad feeling about the situation. Let's go back to the scene of torture. The poor boy drops to his knees, having been stabbed a relentless amount of times as his body flops to the ground. The sight is so brutal that it even terrifies the big guy from earlier. Laryl goes up to remind the coward that if he's going to keep on acting like a coward, he deserves no place among them. Their main goal is to kill people after all. His underling quivers in fear and apologizes at once. As for Jade, the guy is seriously injured close to death, so much so that even Laryl thinks that he's dead. He leaves a little reminder for the demonic sword user that he's going to go ahead and kill the peasants on his own. In the end, Laryl thinks that all of his efforts proved worthless in the end, and it also resulted in his family being destroyed. Laryl levels himself with his unconscious body, and wonders why the kid went so far to not only destroy his family, but also ruin everything for himself. He keeps on nagging Jade, assuring him that there's still a chance that they can still take out the peasants together. But then the boy finally speaks. Even in his pathetic state, Jade reveals that Laryl's ability lasts for a total of 5 seconds, and then requires an additional cooldown of 10 seconds. Being figured out like that causes Laryl some serious anxiety, but he thinks it's pointless now that he's already on the ground. Bringing his knife over to Jade's body, Laryl flips him over for an answer, rendering him a world of even more pain. Jade screams, but to this sadistic noble, he fails to comprehend what's going through his mind. Even after being stabbed multiple times in unending pain, the kid refuses to budge and obey his commands. Even though he's been promised the idea of graduating from the advanced class, he ignores it and doesn't even care about his family's future. It doesn't add up how the boy cares so much about the commoners. Mustering every bit of strength he has, the valiant Jade smiles. He knows that Laryl is restless for his reason to keep on fighting, specifically for a bunch of commoners. Shivering as he is in his state, Jade still goes on to drop a bombshell, calling out Laryl for being completely friendless. Goddamn, bro really said he doesn't get bitches or friends. To him, Laryl is the pinnacle of being the most pitiful person ever, as he's got no one to rely on. Provoked by such words, the sadistic noble races to drive the dagger right into his head. But suddenly, Laryl senses something from the distance, and a second later, his blade is sent flying right into the air. It wasn't a trick from Jade or anything, because even he appears shocked. Instead, it's his friend Urian, who has arrived like a hero, instantly healing Jade and reminding him to always keep an eye for the future ahead. Jade can't fathom how Urian was able to pop out of nowhere, but in the eyes of the second-year advanced class students, they're left astonished by his instantaneous healing powers. Laryl appears speechless. His fun has been ruined, while Urian taunts the bitch that he's not going to get out of this one unharmed. Giving him a satisfied smile, our boy tells him to gear up to get his ass kicked. This provocation only creates joy in Laryl's heart, who clutches his dagger and thinks that the commoner made a big mistake coming here all by himself. Activating his movement stoppage technique, he sets Urian as his target. But our boy just stands there aura farming, daring him to try. The kid just stands there, and to Laryl's surprise, Jade comes rushing with his demonic sword, nearly catching him too. The fact that Jade's powers are restored back to full health only highlights the brilliance of instant healing. Seeing as how he missed Laryl, Jade frustratingly questions Urian for coming here in a dangerous location, especially when he knew all of the risks. To that, Urian reveals that he couldn't just ignore a friend who was injured so badly. Though he healed him, he's starting to wonder if Jade is still hurting from the pain. The boy's words astonish the demonic sword user, who quickly assures Urian that his healing is actually perfect. Our boy is happy to hear that and even assures that Ella is doing okay, because he left her with the princess just a while ago. Hearing about Ella's safety, Jade is genuinely relieved, but being ignored so openly like that causes the bitch-face Laryl to get pissed off. He reminds them that he's out here feeling lonely, Funnily enough, Jade is out here terrified while our boy can't contain his laugh for that cringe-worthy line. The demonic sword user is genuinely afraid of what Laryl can do, especially when he's out in the mood to kill them both. In his mind, the most logical strategy is to actually run away instead of taking the fight head-on. He even warns Urian that this guy is out of their league, which is disappointing for our boy who was expecting a good show. But of course, the creepy noble emphasizes that he's not going to let any of them get away. Once more, he uses his movement trapping technique, which leaves Jade to question which one of them will become his target. With Laryl approaching fourth, the question becomes who will he choose as his target. The threatening situation calls for appropriate measures, which is why Jade deploys the 8th form of his demonic sword, manifesting it as a shield and actually blocking Laryl's attempt to strike. It's crystal clear that he'd try to block Jade's movement, which is why he gambled on that chance. Being blocked off like that causes the noble great annoyance, while Urian is left impressed by the ever-changing nature of the demonic sword. Laryl's entire strategy was so that he could block Jade firsthand and then attack Urian, who would try to save his friend. Because of that, Jade tricked him and made himself the target. Now that he's frozen, his shield is still out, but Jade can't move an inch. The pissy noble ridicules him for trying to squirm his way out of his grasp. Not that it's going to help, of course. But Urian hears all of this, and addresses the fuckface all the while unleashing his godly presence. He leaves one bone-chilling warning for this sadistic clown, that if he ever dares to attack him again, he'll kill Laryl before he can even detect his presence. The bitch-faced noble's expression is actually priceless. Bro is out here contemplating his existence, questioning what the hell is happening. It's a different kind of feeling for him, a feeling of genuine terror and fear. Our boy didn't even have to lift a finger. He can just exude his aura and rob his opponents of any will to fight. Anyway, Urian goes right up to Jade, healing him again. Much to the rank 3 students' concern, Laryl doesn't appear to be attacking them anymore. Jade doesn't get what's running through Laryl's thick head, but he believes that this is the only opportunity for them to end the fight. Clinging to a pathetic and desperate attempt to win, Laryl commands his lackeys to come over because he's done playing around. He gives the 3 stooges 10 minutes to kill them both. And apparently these guys are just as messed up as their leader, as they've been dying for the opportunity to play around. Unfortunately, this situation just went from survival mode to ultra-hard difficulty. Jade had completely miscalculated the fight, forgetting that it's not just Laryl they've got to deal with. There's the fact that the shitty noble is enough of a problem alone to deal with. And then there's the fact that all 3 of his lackeys are pretty damn strong too for being members of the advanced class. A look of terror, defeat, and death looms over him. Jade is out of options and cards to play. He really can't win here. Suddenly, instead of cowering in fear, he forfeits his loser mentality and convinces himself that nothing good will come out of the situation if he doesn't do something about it. In his view, the only chance of victory is for them to run away. So with what little time he has, Jade clings to his demonic sword, questioning how he can convincingly escape this situation. Finally, Urian breaks his silence, smiling in satisfaction and emphasizing that Jade's done his part. So our boy acts like the cool main character that he is, and karate chops his neck with so much speed that Jade faints right away. Our boy catches him, acting like the guy fell all on his own. By the way, the attack that Urian attempted just now was so immeasurably fast that not even Laryl's lackeys could see it happen. In fact, they think that Jade chickened out of fear and fainted from shock. Our boy assures Jade's unconscious body that he's going to handle the rest of the fight. The perspective shifts to Ricky, who is a member of Saruti's team. At this point, he's starting to wonder why it's taking a while for Urian to return. Ella is actually concerned for the same reason, because it shouldn't be taking him this long to return, even though Urian promised he'd be back pretty quickly. She's starting to think that something must have happened, which makes the princess suggest that they go and look for them instead. Let's go back to Laryl's side of things. Apparently, in that brief moment, Urian disappeared without a trace, forcing the shitty noble and his lackeys to chase after them, fearing that they can't let any witnesses escape. The sadistic bastard can't believe that a mere peasant was able to run away with Jade's body with incredible speed. Right as he's trying to search and kill them, a certain someone pops up out of nowhere. It's our favorite hero, Helmet Man. The cloaked figure's meddling annoys Laryl's lackey for disrupting their mission. As for our boy, he doesn't really think much of the situation other than a chance to stretch his body. Looking dripped out as hell, the warrior hopes for them to die slowly. Provoked, Laryl targets him with his movement stoppage ability, calling him a trash bastard. Once again, Urian almost fucks up by revealing his real name, before changing his identity to the genius swordsman. His lackeys are overly confident and try to jump on our boy in Jujutsu Kaisen style, thinking they'll be able to kill him while the swordsman is unable to move. Laryl's look of satisfaction tells you everything about how arrogant he is. The thing is, he's got 3 powerful students as part of his team. Zine Kang is known for his incredible strength. Ailo seems to have a sick addiction to murdering people, and then there's Kelly, who is the most loyal and executes every mission. For a disgusting freak like Laryl, these guys are the best trio he could ask for, and he wants to make sure this pretentious swordsman dies a painful death. But the delusional idiot is left speechless when all 3 of his goons are sent right back. And here's the scary part. Their bodies are literally smashed into the trees with their asses hanging out for display. Welcome to the start of a horror movie that stars Laryl and his lackeys as the entertainment and Urian as the villain. Bro even drops a fun little fact for the shitty noble, pointing out that his movement restriction ability is completely useless against someone like him. He even calls him out for using lame tricks, which is a remark that pisses off the fuckface even more. Stubborn as he is, he refuses to heed the swordsman's advice and spams his technique again. Laryl tries to stab him, but in the end, the attempt is futile as Urian catches the dagger with 2 of his fingers, emphasizing that the technique is useless against him. The trash talk gets real as our boy taunts Laryl for only knowing one technique in his fighting style. In response, the blonde gremlin tries to slash him dozens of times, but it's all pointless as even without using his blade, the swordsman deflects each and every single hit, further frustrating the clown who taunts our boy that he won't win by playing defensive alone. Urian decides to humble this kid by basically clipping off the edge of his precious dagger, rocking him to his core as he succumbs to despair. Our boy brings up the fact that despite being the top second-year student of the academy, there's nothing but disappointment when it comes to Laryl's powers. The fight isn't even enough for a warm-up for him. Staring in disgust, Laryl decides to go all out by whipping out a sword out of his ass, because tell me how he was able to hide such a weapon all this time. Anyway, bro is out here flexing that he hasn't used a sword in 4 years. Thinking that this is going to make any difference, the numbskull charges ahead at Urian, who is pleased to find this battle amusing all of a sudden. Activating his movement stoppage technique, the arrogant Laryl proceeds to strike. But this time, he leaves out a little fun fact for the masked swordsman, revealing that his ability regarding restricting one's movements isn't the only thing special about him. In fact, among the second years, the very reason Laryl is at the top of the rankings is specifically because of his godlike speed. And by the way, this mad lad actually makes it happen. He literally manages to slash Urian with his sword, a clean hit of satisfaction. Let's go back to what happened last year. You see, during the time he beat up all of his classmates to near death, there was one main reason why the school refused to question the severity of his actions. It's because of his tremendous talent that even overshadowed the atrocities he committed. The school figured that someone like him couldn't be disposed of, as he was critical to the success of the kingdom. And that's why this fucker is still around. Laryl has regained his arrogance and thinks that not even the swordsman can keep up with his monstrously fast speed, declaring that speed is the ultimate form of power. At the same time, he's pretty damn surprised that the masked swordsman was able to resist that attack, because Laryl fully aimed to slice his arm off, but was unable to deal any damage beyond a cut. Urian lets him have his moment, before deciding to give him another reality check. You see, the blood on his cloak isn't actually his. It's then Laryl realizes something. The blood actually came from his body, not Urian's. It's a deep slash that happened before Laryl could even process what went down. The second he looks down at his gnashing wound, pain starts to settle in, and he wails in agony. The whole scene is tremendously boring to our boy, and I do have to remind you guys that there's a dude literally bleeding out in front of him, and the best Urian can call him is boring for it. Reduced to a pathetic state, Laryl emphasizes that his talent means a great deal to the kingdom's success, and that attacking someone like him is equal to betraying the kingdom. Urian beats him on the moral ground too, reminding the asshole that he's responsible for nearly murdering people. Recalling the misery that Jade went through, Urian becomes fueled with emotion. He's got his personal beef with this guy now, promising the bitch face that he's gonna make him suffer a lot more than just that. It was at this point Laryl experienced true fear. The best thing he could do was cower and ask about the swordsman's identity. But for now, the swordsman could be considered the embodiment of death and suffering for him. He bids him farewell while reaching for his sword, implying the end of Laryl. The scene cuts to the perspective of Ella's group. All 3 of them are suddenly capable of sensing dark energy. Among them, only Ricky knows that it's the swordsman Yuri Sungsung, having faced him once before. The princess remembers that name from their previous exam, while the heroic Ricky activates his wind spell to chase after the source of the energy. Saruti urges that they also follow suit, but the scene mainly focuses on Ricky's dashing speed. Upon arriving, he sees Laryl's unconscious body spilling his own blood. Standing just over him is Yuri Sungsung, the swordsman who defeated him once before. The name is getting so annoying that even the swordsman thinks he should just say Eurus next time. Hilariously, Ricky completely ignores the advice and still goes on to call him that mouthful of a name. Tian's brother has seen firsthand that not even Laryl is a match for this guy, though he's starting to wonder why the mysterious swordsman has yet to kill the students. The swordsman clarifies that he hasn't killed anyone, but Ricky takes it as a sign that he's trying to hide his crimes. In either case, the Windmaster unleashes his blade, promising to bring the rogue swordsman to light and make him confess. Interestingly, Urian questions if Ricky truly thinks he's stronger than Laryl, the one he just destroyed casually. But Tian's brother acts like he's gone on some kind of off-screen training arc, so much so that he's confident in his powers more than ever before. This time, Ricky fully intends to unleash the might of the Great Spirit of the Wind. At first, the mention of the Great Spirit surprises Urian, because he vividly remembers the goddess Horatia implying that there is more than one intelligent species besides humanity. Anyway, Ricky amplifies his powers by allying himself with Y, which helps charge up his strength. The immense pressure is astonishingly impressive, and gives our boy the idea that he should also keep a fancy power-up move in his toolkit. Nailing down a precise moment to strike, Ricky pulls out 1,000 wind swords all at once. Yes, freaking 1,000. With the swipe of his blade, he channels all of those swords to attack our boy. Urian finds the attempt cute, and at first glance all of the swords appear to have connected with the target in a bright flash. But what really happened in that small window is that Urian unsheathed his sword and released 1,000 cuts, destroying all of the swords at once. Ricky, on the other hand, senses a great opportunity, thinking that he's finally created an opening to attack the swordsman. This time, Mini Virgil from Devil May Cry over here charges up a wave of aura, impressing Urian once more. But the situation is so harmless to this man that he decides to ask Ricky a fun riddle, quizzing him if he can watch his back. The confused wind prodigy doesn't even have time to think, because in the very next second, Urian has already karate chopped his ass with the same afterimage technique he used to knock him out last time. A frustrated Ricky flops to the ground, expressing his disgust for that move. Our boy commends him for showing more promise with his skills than Laryl, but ultimately the result is all the same. In the end, the monster hunting class ended up getting nuked, all thanks to the intervention of the swordsman Uris, or whatever his name is. The man is suspected to be responsible for using monsters to attack the noble children, and has since made a reappearance to strike again. The class teacher charges up to the headmaster's office and skips the small talk. Hayuan wants to get to the bottom of it, and asks if the headmaster is already aware of what happened. The principal assures her that he heard everything, and how she was summoned by other instructors to stay in one place. It bothers her that Hyuan was restrained to a single location, which the headmaster understands is unfit for a woman of her character. Hyuan reveals that she showed zero resistance, leaving it all in the hands of her talented students to handle the job. However, she shares her thoughts regarding her prime suspicion around the person who caused the incident. She thinks that the person responsible must be a man who has direct influence over the teachers. In other words, this girl is actually accusing someone like the headmaster himself. The principal agrees with her thoughts, believing that it's indeed the work of some high-ranking noble. Seconds later, Hayuan unleashes a burst of energy so freaking powerful that every piece of furniture in this man's office is ripped to shreds. This is her warning, a merciful warning for the headmaster, hoping that he wasn't involved. Instead of shouting at her, the principal addresses her in a cool manner and assures Hayuan that he feels just as enraged that the students were injured. He pleads his case, assuring her that he wasn't involved in any of this, but he's damn certain that the teachers who told her to stay behind have a part to play in this. That's why he's in the middle of an interrogation with them, hoping to get to the bottom of this and crack the mystery case. In response, the hero resident advises him to get a good glimpse of the second-year advanced class as well, because they're the bastards responsible for causing the demise of her students. The headmaster reveals that the kids are receiving immediate treatment for their injuries after facing off the mysterious swordsman. He plans to carry out an interrogation with the students too. Hayuan wonders if this Urus guy is some kind of imperial spy of some kind. To that, the principal shares that they've got zero background on the guy, but he places great importance on uncovering the man's identity, believing that he poses a tremendous threat to the academy. The same man could actually be hiding among the students, waiting for his next moment to strike. Funnily enough, that same guy is currently enjoying a delicious meal. Bro is never going to get tired of the savory meals presented here. Ella feels all the same, taking great joy in every bite. Right now, Urian feels the most relieved, thinking that they won't have to worry about demotion for a while, seeing as many students were injured in the monster hunting class. Chris is disgusted by the peasants' way of eating, calling them lowborns, but Rizzo humbles him by reminding the asshole that he's also being impolite for talking during his meal. His remark pisses Chris off, starting another fight between the two. Rizzo is so damn cold, bro tells him that he's already booked an advanced appointment for the shitty blonde at the hospital. Hina and the Goliath talk about how the commoners were attacked, and yet they seem to be faring just fine, all thanks to that instant recovery skill. Interestingly, one of the twin sisters, Mew, expresses her desire to have the same ability as him. Joining them in the fun is Jade, who is really glad to find the siblings doing okay. Urian learns that Jade is actually doing pretty fine on his own, and even though he passed out, his physical body appears to show no problems. As for Ella, she's deeply grateful to the guy, causing him to get flustered. After learning about his courageous sacrifice to protect them both, Ella advises him not to venture off on his own, because they're in this together. The blushing Jade is out here having the day of his life. Bro thinks he's scored his crush, and that probably makes all the stabbing he endured worth it. As for Urian, Bro decides to annihilate the poor guy's dreams by explicitly ranking the list of things Ella loves in her life. First up is him, the second is the lunch menu, and then, and only then, comes Jade's name on that list. Poor guy catches a stray for no reason at all. In the end, lunch is a heated setting just like all the others. The conclusion of the monster hunting exam led to a default position for every student in the advanced class, meaning all of them managed to survive demotion this time. Then we experience a small time skip, jumping ahead a few months. The headmaster acknowledges Urian in his proficiency in magic, and assures the boy that if he fails to pass this exam, he's going to be expelled for good. There goes his peace, because once again, Bro is at the risk of expulsion. The principal highlights that the boy only managed to join the advanced class because he was admitted as a special student, and because of that, his expulsion criteria is even more sensitive than all the others. At the same time, the principal is deeply confident that Urian is going to pass this exam with little trouble, causing our boy to helplessly agree. Now let's talk about the specifics of this upcoming exam. The latest obstacle for the first-year students comes in the form of midterms, where they will be facing another monster hunting exam. This time, the students will enter the Forest of Resilience and try to maintain a score of 20 points to pass the exam. 20 is actually a big number in Rizo's eyes, who openly calls it a waste of his precious time. Even Chris is stunned by his no-bullshit attitude. But instead of scolding the kid, the headmaster clarifies that it's actually a great concern, which leads him to reveal some precious information about the exam. First off, he categorizes the threat level of every monster, which is ranked according to 5 classes. Typical beasts like tigers and bears are level 1, meaning they're the weakest of them all. Then we have a special criteria of monsters, who come in the form of weapons. These annoying swords, bows, and axes are considered level 2. Coming in third are the natural disasters, which are classed as level 3, taking the form of earthquakes, heavy rain, and storms. The fourth classification is an illness or a disease, like depression or other conditions. And finally, the fifth category is only one of its kind. The most powerful of all, the embodiment of time. The headmaster further explains that the strength of a beast is determined by their capacity to kill human beings. It's a strange concept that no one is able to comprehend, but one thing is for damn certain. Every kind of beast is an enemy to humankind. Urian actually finds all of this information about the new world interesting. Side note, I really like this original concept of using abstract and inanimate things as villains in the story. Still, Rizo is pissed off because even after yapping all that shit, the headmaster failed to address the requirement of scoring 20 points. His rude tone doesn't bug the headmaster, and instead he applauds the boy for asking yet another amazing question. The principal reveals that each level grants a different number of points. Level 1 scores the students 2 points, while Level 2 is equal to 5 points. The rest is yet to be stated, because it's unlikely for the students to encounter higher types of monsters in the exam. Long story short, the goal is to hunt monsters until 20 points are secured. The time limit is 5 whole days, and finally, this exam, unlike the others, is going to be an individual challenge to prove that they're capable of staying in the advanced class. Chris is out here snickering like a clown, thinking that Urian is about to get destroyed in this exam. Meanwhile, our boy is thinking the opposite, wondering how he's going to be able to destroy the monsters while also hiding his identity. The curious sisters ask about the points reward for Level 3. The headmaster is proud that Mew became the third person to ask such an important question. He concludes that a Level 3 beast is supposed to amount to 20 whole points, but for their case, it's better to run away than to try and defeat something out of their league. Interjecting into the conversation, the sword instructor comes along and reveals that such types of creatures can't be taken down by students. Instead, GE and Walmart Aizawa are going to make sure to handle those types of creatures for them during the exam. Hayuan also comes along, assuring that there won't be any kind of interruption in this exam, not even from the rogue swordsman. After all, she's going to make it her business to properly observe the exam. She encourages her students to do well. Meanwhile, things are getting more and more complicated for Urian, who takes great joy because he's going to have to come up with a new strategy to clear the exam, all the while keeping his strength a secret from the world. He's thinking about how the exam itself is an easy thing to deal with. The problem is, he's going to have to outsmart the 3 observers who are going to be keeping a close eye on him. And among them, the most dangerous of all is Haiwan. Chris decides to meddle with our boy, reminding Urian that he's going to eat shit in the individual exam, because aside from his instant healing ability, he's got nothing to attack with. The class clown laughs at him, while Ella swoops right in, promising her brother that she's going to do her best to help him. If anything, Urian is a bit happy to achieve this kind of dynamic, and wonders if things will go smoothly. In the next scene, Budget Aizawa returns with an announcement. He's already sent all of the students to their designated locations, while GE appears to be using her magic jewel to keep watch over all of them. Thanks to the magic tools, they have an eye on each and every single one of the students. Wow, Urian better have a 1000 IQ strategy or else he's going to get caught instantly. The headmaster is intrigued and wonders which one of them will be able to clear the exam first. Clearly, everyone is placing their bets on the princess, who is immeasurably powerful. the swordmaster places his bet on Ricky, who is in a league of his own. Ji agrees that everyone among the first years is promising, which leads to the prediction of what will happen to the special admission student, Urian. Being the filthy mouth he is, Jerry intervenes and believes that there's no shot in hell that Urian's ever going to secure first place, or even pass the exam for that matter. In fact, Jerry laughs in amusement, believing that the peasant will find himself expelled in this exam. This is cause for great concern for Ji, who emphasizes Urian's importance for the future of the academy, especially now that he can also use instant healing. Haiwan is neutral and thinks that they'll know for sure in time whether or not the boy is capable of passing. The scene cuts to Urian, who is annoyed that he's being watched so intensely. The problem is, expulsion for him is guaranteed if he can't score the passing criteria, but then he also can't use his powers openly either. This makes the boy enter a state of contemplation, wondering what is the typical standard for strength in this world. After all, when it comes to his instant healing skill, it's considered one of its own kind. He has to think carefully about what kind of strength is applicable to combat. Well, while he's out here brainstorming ideas, a behemoth-sized rat pops out of the blow to prey on its meal. Urian finds the ugly freak disgusting, causing the monster to roar in his damn face. Unfortunately, since he's being closely observed, the boy chooses to use the abilities that the school is already aware of. He pops out his magic wand and annihilates the creature using his water blast attack. A proud Ji is impressed by his talent, while Jerry over here is actually starting to respect him too. The sword instructor and Haiwan appear to be happy as well, but the only problem is, despite his immense mana, the attack is far too weak to deal any damage. Bro gave the damn rat a shower if anything, but Urian is enjoying the sight despite having dealt 0 damage. In his mind, he internalizes how showcasing just a little bit of strength doesn't affect his heart. But back then, even if he exerted just a little bit of strength, the pain in his heart would intensify to the point of being unbearable. The only reason that happened is because he was channeling way too much power in that instance than what he did right now. This means that Urian has safely and intelligently discovered a loophole around his limitation. All he has to do is use a certain amount of strength, which will ensure his heart remains unharmed. Well, the situation only gets worse for him as 2 more of the giant rats come out of the blue, surrounding the student. Our boy's lost in thought, pretty damn curious to discover the exact limit of the loophole. Suddenly he sees something in the distance. This piece of metal is actually a sword beast, a level 2 creature. The mystical creature happily hunts down the rat monsters by slicing their bodies clean. Urian is surprised because the sword beast is decimating the creatures without much trouble, leaving even the teachers worried for the boy's sake. When the smoke clears, Urian appears to be standing unharmed, thanks to the usage of his healing ability. Even Jerry can't help but acknowledge how the boy survived a critical blow without any wounds thanks to his healing powers. An excited Urian is glad that he's facing off a creature worth 5 points, and suddenly wonders how his sister is holding up in the exam. Speaking of his sister, Ella and Jade are out there tag teaming to defeat a freaking axe monster. I have to admit, the creative designs for these monsters are pretty cool. Jade wants to defeat the monster at once, so they can go and help out Urian, because both of them suspect that the poor boy must be having a difficult time managing on his own. I think they should stop worrying about him and focus on the axe beast right in front of their eyes, because this creature charges up an incredibly powerful slash, so much so that Jade has to whip out his demonic sword just to block it. He has no idea why it's so powerful, and because of its overwhelming might, Ella joins the clash to help him out. Both of them do their absolute best to hold out the blast, and successfully manage to deflect it using their combined strength. Jade turns to her, thanking Ella for her contribution in blocking the attack. While they're out here trying to become lovebirds, the axe beast is hovering right over, watching it all happen and probably dying from cringe. Jade is acting like a simp for Ella, who is so stunned from the previous attack that her hands can't stop shaking out of fear. She realizes that level 2 beasts are in a whole different category of their own, and if her little brother has the misfortune of running into one, he's going to get badly injured despite his healing skill. Strengthening her resolve for her brother's sake, Ella determines herself to defeat this monster to help out Urian. As for Jade, he's more than ready to rumble as the sword duo readies itself for round 2. Having faced off a powerful beast of the level 2 classes, both of them gained confidence in their own abilities. They couldn't help but enjoy the thought of defeating the beast. But unfortunately, their delusion quickly turned into despair, when a creature even beyond the likes of level 2 emerged from the skies. It's a terrifyingly gigantic storm beast, which even dwarfs the size of the level 2 axe monster. The observation over the exam continues, with each teacher expressing great interest in our boy's performance. All of a sudden, the mystical globe cracks open to everyone's confusion. Even the magic expert Ji is astonished by what's going on. The situation caused a red alert, as even the headmaster failed to comprehend the situation. The cracking of the globe only means one thing, that an entity around the likes of a level 3 has appeared out of nowhere. And not just one, there's 3 of them popping out at the same time. This situation is special in its own right. as the headmaster reflects how the forest is home only to level 1 and level 2 monsters. The forest is specifically chosen as a test for first-year students, knowing the minimal risk involved. And yet, out of nowhere, a level 3 class beast emerged. Sensing danger, the headmaster prepares himself and orders Jerry, Ryunbi, and Hwon to head out and take care of each incident zone. Their main objective is to prioritize the safety of the students, as any harm done to them could be detrimental to the future of the kingdom. Right after this scene, the humongous storm entity begins to swallow everything in its path. The appearance of such a godlike being leaves Ella both terrified and at a loss for words. The sheer terror she feels in this moment assures her that she's facing a level 3 entity, which brings up the question, just how the hell do you attack something as monstrous as this? Contrasting Ella's fear and inability to move, Jade is steadfast even in the face of danger. He calms her down, pointing out the obvious that the instructors are definitely on their way to rescue them. All they have to do is focus on survival, a fact that gives Ella some hope, though she still worries about her little brother's condition. Suddenly, the winds around them become so strong that they suck Ella towards the creature. On the other hand, Jade is doing fine thanks to his demonic sword, and is trying to do his best to get a hold of the scarlet-haired girl. Luckily for them, they manage to catch each other, while Jade doubles down on his demonic sword, urging Ella to keep holding on. But while he's trying his best to hold on, he completely forgot about the axe entity that is also trying to slice them down. The attack misses them by just a few inches, and once again, both of them manage to escape death. Jade and Ella can't even catch a break before being overwhelmed, something that Jade nervously accepts. Right now, they're facing two creatures out of their league, and yet both of them have determined the resolve to fight, each holding on to their weapons. Ella and Jade charge ahead for their one and only salvation, an opening that could save their lives. Their main focus is to target the axe monster, so the demonic sword user alters his sword into a shield form, blocking the monster's initial attack. The boy's confidence in his own abilities has risen to another level. More importantly, this opportunity allows Ella to sneak up with a brutal slash from above. The attack fully connects, severing the monster clean. Unfortunately, the creature is yet to be defeated, as Ella only managed to slice off a part of its body. But this is tremendous progress, because right as she's finished attacking, Jade sweeps right in, reflecting on a sentimental moment he shared with his mother before heading out for his family's cause. The boy's mother was worried about the burden placed on him, but Jade assured her that he was ready to take on the role of doing everything for his family's sake. However, the boy's mother gently reminded him that he's not a sacrificial pawn or a stepping stone for the family. Instead, she urged strongly that he used his powers to help himself and those around him. After all, that is their ultimate duty as wielders of the demonic blade. Those words ring to light, and he remembers his battle against Laryl, where he actually held himself back, fearing that the higher-ups would hunt his family down if he ended up disrupting their mission. At the same time, if he let Laryl go off easily, then his friends would be at risk. That's why, the goal of that fight wasn't to achieve victory, but to use himself as a sacrifice and allow his friends a chance to escape. The memories of his friends and his siblings shine vividly one last time, before Jade annihilates the Axe Demon with the tremendously powerful first phase of his demonic sword. An attack of that caliber is so incredible in Ella's view, that she's rendered shocked, questioning what her friend just did. Jade's move just now was incomprehensible to her eyes. Even though they've successfully killed their first level 2 beast, that doesn't mean their worries are over. The storm monster is still here, and this time it's out to target Ella, who is left unguarded. Both of them end up taking a brutal shove, launching them both into the air. Jade and Ella barely have any time to process what even happened. At best, they can only hope to wonder how they were tossed into the air like that. This is bad, really bad. At this height, neither of them can survive the fall. The fear in Ella's eyes is real, showing a complete despair and her final desire to meet her brother. Thankfully, Urian arrives at the right moment, and though he helps his sister land like a princess, he leaves poor Jade out to crash helplessly. The boy's eyes are full of wonder, showing excitement to finally run into a level 3 monster. Jade regains his senses and remarks how relieved he is to find our boy alive. He even tells the boy that their teachers are already on the move, so all they have to do is stall for time and survive. But Urian is out here having a glaring standoff with this beast, believing that it's best to hunt the monster for 20 whole points. Urian suggests taking it down like a team effort, but his words are lost on Jade and Ella, who are questioning if he's lost his damn mind or something, especially when he's seeing a creature of terror before him. As for his sister, she's starting to get the impression that her brother is much braver than she is. In reality, our boy is out here drooling in excitement of farming those precious 20 points. Let's go back to the part where our boy faced off not only against the sword beast, but also the overgrown rats. Urian understood that he could only reveal a normal amount of power to bypass the condition of his heart. The tricky part was how much power he could unleash in one go. Thankfully, right then and there, the observing globes appeared to shatter out of nowhere. The one thing that bothered him the most was no longer posing him a burden. Thanks to that, Bro was free to do whatever he wanted. While he's thinking about others' safety, the ugly rat tries to creep up from behind to launch a sneaky attack. Annoyed, Urian bitch slaps the monster's head away, considering it a nuisance that he was disturbed while talking. As for the sword beast, Bro is questioning how the hell this kid got so strong. Urian is just happy that nothing's standing in his way anymore, now that the cameras are down. At the same time, unfortunately he can't test the normal standard of his abilities if the cameras are out. That also means that he doesn't have to keep any monsters alive anymore. Oh, and by the way, while he's saying all of this, the one-sided massacre is already over. The sword beast has literally been annihilated during the same time Urian was delivering that little speech. He's also really happy to let himself enjoy his powers every once in a while. Suddenly, he heard the screams of his sister, which led to him racing to her rescue. Now let's return to the perspective of Ji, who is trying her best to heal the crystal globes, while the headmaster places urgency on the task. This situation is astonishing even for her. The fact that multiple observing tools were destroyed out of nowhere isn't a normal occurrence, even with the presence of a Class 3 beast. There's another problem. The globes are unusually difficult to repair, which only makes her wonder what's really going on behind the scenes. Returning to the fight scene between Urian and the natural disaster, the boy recommends hunting down the creature together. But right then, the storm monster sucks in a heavy volume of air before releasing it with a concentrated push so strong that it literally launches Jade to the next planet. Bro hits the tree with a heavy slam, and if his back isn't in a billion pieces after this, I'll be surprised. A worried Ella turns to his injured state, but before anything worse happens, Urian's instant healing spell kicks right in, undoing all of the damage. Jade is genuinely happy because they're going to be using a lot of that spell if they're going to have to beat a level 3 monster. Thankfully though, now he understands Urian's mission. The point of their hunt isn't exactly to kill the creature at all. With that thought in mind, Jade lunges forth with incredible speed, Ella backing him up on the attempt. Their main goal is to go on the offensive and neutralize the creature as best as they can. If they try to run away, things will end up terribly like last time, because escaping a level 3 beast is damn near impossible. The logical approach is to go on the offensive, keeping it busy with multiple attacks like they're doing right now, and focusing on covering each other's blind spots. That's the goal. But hilariously, Urian is out here realizing that maybe his plan isn't so perfect after all. Because Ella and Jade are going to be out here taking the painful hits and trying to land the 20 points for themselves. If only they ran away, Urian would have secretly hunted and enjoyed all of the points. In any case, both of them are slashing the beast down with immense might, while Urian is placed in a contemplative state, wondering how he can even contribute to the battle. Thankfully, Ricky the Mad Lad arrives and chants the use of his wind spirit's power to create a gigantic sword spell. He launches the sword with incredible speeds, piercing the storm creature's body as it cuts its way out of the winds. While Jade and Ella are shocked, Ricky commends them for being truly brave and holding their own against a level 3 beast. He compares them to the valiant knights. By the way, our boy is out here even more pissed than before. Ricky single-handedly took down the level 3 beast all on his own, and ended up stealing the points for himself. Jade doesn't like it either, believing that they were making steady progress hunting the creature, so it's a dick move that Ricky intervened. Hilariously, Urian shares the same opinion as Jade, expressing his complaints that Tien's brother ruined everything they planned for. Clearly, Ricky didn't expect any of this. He's such a chill dude that he allows them to keep the points for themselves, putting a smile on Urian's face. The noble swordsman believes that it's pointless for him to steal points from other talented students who will contribute to the future of the kingdom. The thing is, even as noble as Ricky sounds here, he was a completely different child just 1 year ago. Just like all the other nobles, he judged peasants and commoners, but after his humbling encounter with the masked swordsman, his opinion has changed. An intrigued Ricky challenges them to a duel, outlining that he's going to let them keep all of the points if they can showcase a fraction of the power Eurus had. Though Urian and Ella appear astonished, Tien's brother accepts that the commoners this year belong to a whole different category, especially when it comes to that particular masked swordsman. Ricky senses that a special admission student like Urian might possess similar capabilities like that guy, and before that happens, he wants to help our boy follow the path of good. His duel is cock-blocked by the sudden appearance of a being that haunts humans every day. The sheer presence of this being is so terrifying that it terrifies Ricky and all the others. This creature, wielding multiple frowning faces and arms, merely declares that it has no interest in dying. In the next second, his influence over Ricky, Jade, and Ella causes each of them to draw their own weapons against their necks. Horrifically, they literally slice their own throats in a brutal manner while Urian watches in horror. Unaccepting the death of his sister, he instantly heals them before they fully pass on. Then he turns to the multiple fuck-faced monster, questioning its identity. The creature responds that it is the driving force of every human being's demise, the one that humans dread in their lives the most. Meet Depression, the level 4 monstrosity that's even more powerful than natural disasters. Again, Depression's sheer presence is enough to destroy Jade's sanity. causing him to vomit out of fear. Have you guys ever seen Ricky express true fear? Well, right now the guy is shaking like he's having a panic attack. In that brief moment, he processed what happened a few seconds ago. He had stabbed himself, and there was nothing he could do to stop it. As for Urian, he's currently analyzing the physical form of the level 4 entity, sharply observing how depression appears to have scars around its wrists and neck. But even an ultimate being of sorrow like depression is surprised when it realizes that Urian remains unaffected under his influence. Our boy funnily takes offense to being asked such a sensitive question, but depression thinks that it's totally normal. After all, human beings can never resist its influence when it has taken control over them. Urian can't help but laugh in mockery, while a struggling Ricky comes up to address him, pointing out that the boy has a godlike ability. Because just now, Urian not only managed to save them from the literal brink of death, he also healed their mental trauma that would have normally haunted them for life. It's the fact that Ricky now knows how precious Urian's powers are for the benefit of the kingdom, which is why he's ready to sacrifice his own life, just to protect him. Unleashing the might of the wind spirit, Ricky brings out his thunderous fury, but at best, depression is only amused to see a child blessed by a spirit's power. Ricky, having activated the powers of the wind spirit, takes great offense that a beast even dared to speak in its name. Meanwhile, Urian is out here getting blasted by the wind, internalizing that only a level 4 class creature is capable of speaking intelligently and possessing a personality. Depression scoffs at Ricky's comment, because clearly it's not just a mere monster like every other beast they've faced so far. Before Ricky can even comprehend what a level 4 creature is doing here, Depression creeps up on his face, chanting the same words as last time, a plea not to die. In that moment, Ricky's body gives up total control. The same goes for Ella and Jade, as every single one of them stabs their necks in painful submission, all except for Urian, who is starting to get pissed off that this creature is killing his friends. Even Depression, the almighty beast possessing an incredible presence, is terrified by our boy's release of energy. Urian quickly heals them, while the entity realizes that their recovery isn't just a miracle anymore. While our boy guards his sister in worry, the looming terror creeps up on him, declaring that it will kill the boy first, as he poses a great obstruction to their plans. In response, Ricky continues to boast incredible determination, roaring that Urian is to live no matter what happens. This time, the swordsman has noticed how the attack of Depression has basically zero effect on Urian, showcasing that he's got a godlike resistance to magic too. Both his instant healing and his resistance implies that he's someone comparable to a hero knight, well beyond the likes of a normal student. Unfortunately, Depression has fixed his sights on killing Urian as it reaches to end his life. Frightened, the wind swordsman roars in concern. In that moment, Jade comes out aura farming with his penultimate move again, the first manifestation of the demonic sword. But even that incomprehensible attack isn't able to do anything against the level 4 beast, much to the boys' frustration. Right now, their best chance is to help Urian escape, but what good will that do when Depression is already about to claim his life? Realizing that Ricky has to handle everything on his own, he takes control over the winds and pulls all three of them into a floating state, launching them away. Urian is starting to get bored of Ricky's futile attempts, though he suddenly remembers that Ricky is actually supposed to be Tien's brother. Just like last time, Tien yeeted him so she could save his life. Both siblings have the same strategy in a situation ensuring their own demise, but that leaves Depression plotting its next kill, boringly questioning why the wind swordsman refused to run. Ricky lets out a defeated laugh, admitting that there's no way in hell anyone can run from the entity's grasp. So in his final stand, he plans to hold off the level 4 creature as best he can, before an ex-warrior or a hero arrives on the battlefield. The entity accepts that fact, and amusingly questions if the boy is waiting for a hero to come save him, especially when Ricky looks like he's at the verge of crying. I'm not gonna lie, I know it seems like Ricky is supposed to be a cold side character, but this is an amazing way of showing just how frightening his opponent is. Despite his trembling state, the boy holds on, begging his own body to stay strong for at least 3 seconds. In those 3 meaningful seconds, he commands the use of the mighty wind spirit, unleashing a thunderous dragon from the heavens. It actually reminds me of Sasuke's Chirin attack that he used against Itachi. Anyway, the level 4 beast didn't anticipate that attack. Though the attack connects, the terrifying entity casually admits just how despairing the situation is for Ricky, especially when the entity has yet to use a proper attack. Ricky knows in his heart that it's game over for him. There's no way he'll survive. Or so he thought, because at that moment, Ryunbi pops out in a flash, realizing that they're up against a far stronger beast than a mere level 3 monster. Depression doesn't want to make another introduction, while the sword instructor whips out his first technique. Meanwhile, Jade and Ella are barely regaining consciousness, and our boy is casually observing the scene floating in the air like a god. With the appearance of a level 4 beast, it's a threat to every student involved. Realizing that this is a case of complete emergency, the swordsman uses a magical technique, manifesting gigantic winds of a butterfly that release a deafening wave of wind. The wind is so strong that it's unbearable for Ricky to endure. As for the level 4 class beast, it's merely a minor nuisance. The thing is, the point of the deafening sound is to act as a signal, reaching all the way out to the headmaster's office. He realizes that the signal came from the sword instructor. Meanwhile, Ji calls him over for an important discovery. She talks about how things are progressively getting worse, and even if the creature is supposed to be a level 3 beast, it shouldn't have done this much damage. She senses that this entity is also responsible for breaking off all communication. The realization hits the headmaster, who immediately contacts Haiwan, hoping to connect with her. With no response from Haiwan, the headmaster strings together what's happened so far. Not only did a level 3 class creature emerge out of the blue, but then all of the monitoring orbs were shattered in an irreparable manner. With this much evidence, the headmaster thinks that it's foolish to think all of what happened is just a mere coincidence. Only a level 4 beast could pose this much of a threat to everyone involved, but that makes him question the intentions of the beast's appearance. There's no point for a creature like that to appear in an ordinary exam. Still, the headmaster is out here fully pissed off and releases his golden aura. He decides to take Ji alongside him to rescue the children before the royal knights can make their move. And in the worst-case scenario, the headmaster hopes that Ryumbi can hold his own for as long as he can. Going back to the scene of the battle, the majestic swordmaster is attempting to fight off the entity. Depression scoffs, amused, wondering if this man really thinks he poses any threat to an entity of its caliber. In reality, even the sword instructor is nothing more than an insect before it. The creature attempts to extend its hands in an effort to reach him. Ricky worriedly shouts his teacher's name, who impressively holds his ground and lunges forth with incredible speed. Manifesting his wind sword, Butterfly Man over here tries to connect a proper slash. But right as he's about to make his move, Depression is one step faster and grabs his body, crushing it like dust. But to its surprise, the butterfly swordsman manifests from behind, attempting to strike again. Peeved, Depression uses its overgrown hand to stop him. Yet again, Ryumbi dashes away and pops up from another spot and mocks the level 4 beast for being pathetically slow. Even from Ricky's perspective, his teacher is currently moving at a rate so fast that he can barely keep track of his movements. At this point, his incredible speed is impressive enough to make Ricky believe that his master will emerge victorious in this fight. Until Ryumbi's blade is inches away from slashing the entity, a realization of terror looms over his body. Depression has just used the same self-inflicting chant that he used before. Ricky knows this is bad news as the swordsman stabs his own leg. Only after stabbing himself does he process what happened. This is the true might of absolute compulsion, the ability to overpower someone's will and forcing them to take their life. With the sword instructor kneeling before his feet, Depression mocks him for failing to maintain the same confidence from earlier. It's at this point that even the sword instructor is engulfed in a state of doom, one of complete terror. His heart couldn't help but imagine this catastrophic being as a creature that reduced him to sheer helplessness. Still, Ryumbi maintains his resolve and limps while taking a stand, questioning the beast's goals. Normally, level 4 creatures are extremely rare to come by, so the fact that one has appeared out of the blue must mean that it's here for a greater reason. Sensing that the human is stalling for time and gathering information, Depression mocks him. But he's so confident in his victory that he reveals their one true goal, to drive the whole of humanity to sheer extinction. Ricky roars at his master to try and run, begging him to do so while he still can. Even Ryumbi is starting to humble himself and realizes that he can't hold down a level 4 beast. Thankfully, none of the students have been killed so far, so the best outcome is to return to the kingdom and report the creature's sighting. But that plan only sounds good in theory, because the entity has them both locked in a chokehold, bringing them to their knees, to the point they're choking themselves out. The entity enjoys the sight and prepares to finish them with its embrace, horrifyingly praying for their deaths. As the limb is about to touch either of them, Ricky's sister senses his presence from very far away. It's at this moment that Depression is blinded by a beaming bright light. Emerging from Ricky's body is a fairy-like woman, possessing 3 sets of wings. She is the wind spirit that the wind swordsman borrows his powers from. Sensing Depression's arrogance, the mighty wind spirit decides to humble him by annihilating its limb in the blink of an eye. Before Depression could even process what's going on, he is met with a taste of terror. The thing is, the mighty spirit hovering before him is one of 4 mighty spirits in the entire world. And even though the wind spirit is known to be the most selfish of them all, she's personally come to save Ricky. Regenerating its lost fragments, Depression cowers in fear and addresses the great spirit with respect, questioning why a being of her caliber has decided to meddle in the affairs of this realm. It fails to comprehend why she has personally come to a human's rescue. Let's zoom out and really understand the importance of mighty spirits in this world. Everything in nature is governed by 4 enormously powerful spirits, and among them, Y is the most selfish of them all. Y reveals her intentions, sharing that she's personally come here to negotiate with the garbage entity. Depression questions what she means to imply by the word negotiate. She responds, requesting the survival of both Ryunbi and Ricky, and if he can spare them, she promises not to interfere in his affairs when it comes to killing other humans. The fact that a spirit of her caliber has personally descended to come negotiate with the level 4 beast is actually an honor in front of Depression. The creature can't believe that she's doing all of that for two insignificant humans. Funnily enough, the girl's logic is that both of them look cute, which is really the only reason she's keeping them alive. But the same can't be said for ugly-faced Depression. The entity objects, questioning why a mighty spirit is interfering with the matters of their ecosystem. Wee gently reminds him that he's not the one to decide what she does. She hands him an easy offer. Either he can get annihilated by her and fail to reach his true goal, or he can just accept the offer. Depression takes a moment to question his chances, wondering if he's being threatened or being shown a way out. Unfortunately, picking a battle with a mighty spirit of all things over a bunch of humans is an enormous risk even for a level 4 beast. At the same time, Depression is starting to understand that something about Ricky or Ryunbei is special, because that's the only reason a mighty spirit even cared to descend and intervene on their behalf. This is a scary fact for Depression, who fears that these two will grow incredibly strong in the future. That's why it hastens to kill the humans first, hoping to disrupt the Wind Spirit's plans for the future. But that's the stupidest mistake it could have ever made. The Wind Spirit doesn't even fear a thing, and simply calls Depression an idiot. With a gentle flick of her hand, she obliterates his ass and slices him into a Kit Kat. The Wind Spirit assures him that he's under a grave misunderstanding of his own worth because of the negotiation she offered. So as a punishment, she intends to annihilate the creature 4 more times. The massacre begins and ends in the span of 4 blasts. Next up, Wee emphasizes the importance of her position as a mighty spirit, reminding Depression that it would practically take her 0 effort to obliterate him completely. By the way, the same unstoppable being from before is now reduced to a pile of mud. Of course, Depression quickly regenerates and assembles itself, this time accepting the mighty spirit's offer, believing that his long-term goal matters a lot more. He yaps like he's incredibly self-important, while the Wind Spirit simply tells him to get lost. Hearing her, the level 4 beast disappears right away. As for Wee, she senses that the beasts have already started making their move. More importantly, the girl is out here smothering Ricky's unconscious state. The poor guy is unconscious and she's trying to punch him back to life. Thankfully, Wee is just happy to see him doing okay. The fairy then glances at the sword instructor, who looks pathetic with the way he's knocked out. She's rather surprised that the sword instructor still refuses to use the full extent of the Wind Spirit's powers. Let's cut back to Depression's point of view, who is supremely pissed off that it had to concede in front of a mighty spirit. Bro got his ass humbled and is seething over the fact. The creature is angry to experience a setback in its goals, but ultimately decides to settle for the alternative. Instead of killing Ricky and his master, he can always kill the rest of the cadets taking the exam to his heart's delight. Pulsed with rage and terror, Depression makes a bone-chilling declaration to kill every single student in the forest. Or well, that's what he thinks at least. Because right then and there, a large column of energy reaches the skies. Depression is alarmed until it sees the one responsible for casting such an enormous amount of energy. It's Urian, the same boy from before. But this version of Urian is in beast mode because he's frustrated at his hesitation to protect his dear sister at the cost of concealing his powers. Depression acts all confident, happy to meet the same boy again. He assures the little boy that no matter how far he ran away, the creature would have caught up to him. For its own excitement, the level 4 beast welcomes the boy into a world of despair. Its 2 limbs quickly grab a hold of Urian's neck, choking him out while excitedly revealing that those who succumb to its influence are deep down secretly desperate for a chance to escape. Our boy lets the level 4 beast have its fun, before grabbing hold of its limb with a grip so strong that he freaking tears it apart. Urian coldly reminds the being of despair that he's done hearing talks of killing himself. Glaring at the level 4 beast with a fearless tone, Urian mocks the beast for being insignificant. Infuriated, Depression unleashes a web of limbs, trying to grab a hold of the boy in a desperate attempt. But Urian isn't afraid. One flashback of his sister pointing her sword at her own neck is enough to piss him off. Thanks to this, he's also achieved an understanding of how much strength he can reveal in one go. Putting a good chunk of his power into his punch, Urian fucking obliterates Depression, wiping him from existence. After the level 4 monster incident, the kingdom holds an emergency meeting. The headmaster reports the whole ordeal to King Brihidanus, including how the students and teacher Ga Ryunbi managed to fight back. He also adds that they passed out afterward and probably got saved by the great spirit Y. Viscount Drade adds that Y probably clashed with the level 4 since the forest looks like it got nuked. Viscount Reyes agrees and points out that the monster's gotten way stronger, which sends the nobles into panic mode because if the Great Spirit struggled this much, they figure they're completely screwed. But then Xerdas tells them to stop whining like toddlers, as he reminds them they're in front of the king. Some guy with flawless hair straight out of a shampoo commercial steps in next, and claims humanity has powered up too, thanks to system upgrades. and now knights are stronger than ever. Zialeftin, commander of the Royal Knights, declares that humanity will never kneel before monsters. The king backs him up with an assist, saying that humans are incredibly resilient. He instructs the headmaster to lock down whatever route the monster used to sneak in, and tells the knights and lords to stay on standby to protect civilians. Then, Mages steps up to raise another issue, and the king gives him permission to speak. The headmaster says that even though the annual friendly competition is around the corner, they should cancel it this year. The king smiles as he asks if that's the annual competition where their students compete with the Empire students based on skills. The headmaster confirms it and explains that monster activity is insane right now, so postponing would be smart. But the fat Viscount instantly gets pressed as he brings up the declaration from the Empire, which sarcastically praises their quick response to the monster attack and hopes that they join the friendly competition this year. Viscount Reyes insists they can't afford to back down if the Empire's being that cocky. Some nobles point out how the Empire's been on a losing streak and probably just wants an easy win this year. Mages stays on track and warns them that level 4s aren't brainless beasts, and this attack was well planned out. But the fat Butterball throws a tantrum and yells out that backing out means giving up their dominance in the monster war. Mages fires back that risking students' lives isn't worth it, but Viscount Reyes seems overconfident that they can deploy the military in time. Zertus sides with him and says that monsters wouldn't dare attack if knights are there, but Mages brings up the recent incident and asks what if history just repeats itself. The Fatso noble laughs it off and asks if Mages is saying the Empire's too weak to fight. Just then, the king silences everyone with a polite shut up. He agrees that it is too dangerous to move forward without knowing the monster's motive, but if they pull out, the Empire might start political talks with other countries against them. King Brehadinus states that they are stuck at a crossroads, so he proposes to ask the students directly. That stuns Mages, but the king doubles down and orders him to bring in the ones who fought the level 4, as well as Urien. Sometime later, Urien finds himself in the meeting and wonders what the hell is going on. All the summoned people are bowing to the king as Mages introduces them. The king tells them to raise their heads and commends their bravery. He claims their actions secured peace for the kingdom, though Urien is not sure about that, while some nobles can't shut up about him being a commoner. The king clarifies that he didn't summon them for rewards, and instead, he brings up the friendly competition. He explains its role in maintaining international relations and drawing attention from other nations, but reveals the secret that it actually shows how strong a country really is. The winner gets major sponsors and sky-high expectations, but this year, they're considering pulling out, because there is a high risk that the monsters might attack again. The mention of level 4 hits Ricky hard as he flashes back to the fight and starts sweating buckets. The king notices and asks why Ricky looks paler than Michael Jackson, and then he gives them all permission to speak freely. But the squad stays silent, which leaves the nobles to wonder if they're all still processing their near-death experience. Urien figures that if no one speaks up, the magic school's pride is toast, and the competition is as good as gone. So he steps up and starts off by thanking the king for letting him be part of this meeting, and says he wants to say something regarding the competition. He explains how the three of them faced the level 4 in a brutal fight, but none of them were scared, and they worked together to overcome it. If another level 4 shows up, then they will surely prove to everyone that they can defeat it. The nobles instantly start buzzing like nosy ants at a family gathering, but the king just bursts into laughter and says it was a solid choice to bring Urien here. That reaction throws Urien off, but the king continues that he's appointing Urien as the kingdom's official representative in the friendly competition. That announcement sends the nobles into complete chaos, while Urien stands there in silence as he tries to understand what the hell just happened. The fat noble instantly starts whining that His Majesty needs to reconsider, since the friendship competition is a serious matter, and tossing a commoner as the lead rep might not be the smartest move. Mages wastes no time clapping back as he reminds the Butterball that Urien isn't some random commoner, and is a special grade magic student, which instantly makes the guy sweat bullets. Just then, Ricky grows a spine and steps up as he tells everyone Urien's no joke. The guy tanked a level 4's attack head-on and bounced back thanks to instant recovery, and he's sure Urien will crush it at the competition, which sends our boy into full blush mode. But before the moment can settle, a voice calls out that instant recovery is basically a scam, and is just a glorified version of plain old heal. The Marquis goes on like he's some big deal, saying the skill just helps the body recover naturally and not directly heal wounds, so most likely it is just a scam. He states that Ricky probably just got hit with illusion magic, which nearly sends the Silver Knight over the edge, but Mages cuts him off. He roasts the Marquis that his understanding of magic isn't absolute, and that jab makes the whole room turn silent. Mages then suggests settling the matter with a live demo, but the nobles still look unconvinced, so he calmly asks Urian to show them. Our boy is still wondering how things ended up like this, but then takes a breath and confidently claims that instant recovery is the real deal, which makes jaws drop across the room. Viscount Zertis suddenly pulls up his meaty forearm and shows off an old scar that's stuck around for 4 years despite treatment. He asks if Urian's magic can erase it for good, but Magus calls out that Urian's spell is for wounds and not for scars. But the Butterball starts yapping again that they can't risk harming anyone if there's still a chance it's all fake. The Marquis still tries to sound like an expert and says a scar is technically a wound, so if the magic's legit, it should work. Magus clearly doesn't like that smug logic, but Urian couldn't care less, and agrees to do so since he is curious too. Ignoring the headmaster's protest, Urian steps forward and casts his spell on the Viscount's arm, and just like that, the scar vanishes. Zertis stares at his arm like he's seeing it for the first time as he stutters out that it's now smooth as a baby's skin, which leaves the rest of the noble's jaws hanging wide open. Even the king looks shocked while one noble asks Zertis if it's really gone, and he nods in disbelief. Even his sore throat feels better now, which confirms this isn't some cheap illusion, and he declares the instant full recovery is 100% real. Zia Lefton, the zesty commander, speaks up with excitement that this is a revolutionary discovery, because if used on the battlefield, or even in regular life, this ability could change everything. Furthermore, if they manage to mass scale it, it could seriously boost medical technology. Urian's also happy it works on scars until the Butterball butts in again, asking how many times a day he can use it. Urian takes a few moments and randomly replies that he can use it up to 3 times a day. Viscount Reyes looks stunned for a second but quickly turns greedy as he asks if Urian can remove the scars from his skin too. The rest of the nobles immediately shut him down for crossing the line while Ricky continues fanboying over Urian like he's just witnessed a miracle. The king shuts the whole room up again and states that since Urian's power is now confirmed, there should be 0 objections about his role as representative. He declares full support for Urian and guarantees he will graduate from magic school with the backing of the headmaster. Turning to our boy, the king commands him to represent the kingdom with pride and dedicate his life to serving it. Urian accepts with a forced smile, but then the king drops another surprise and asks him to become friends with his daughter, to which he also nervously agrees to. The next day at school, Chris is absolutely losing it that Urian got royal recognition and was picked as the representative. Ella and Jade also hear the news and are shocked, while Chris looks like he has hemorrhoids. He stomps around that the nobles will never acknowledge his power and demands a fight to prove himself, but Jade reminds him that the king himself already approved Urian. However, Urian is unbothered as ever and agrees to the fight anyway, leaving both of his class buddies completely stunned. Both of them prepare to throw down as Chris, who clearly chokes on his own jealousy, demands that our boy drop the representative title if he ends up losing the duel. Everyone watches with excitement while this surprise match unfolds, and Rizzo casually whips out popcorn like he's front row at a drama premiere. Jade and Ella throw in their support, while Hina debates whether to break it up, but secretly finds herself way too hyped since she's standing right next to the princess. Surti points out that the duel should be allowed since even the teacher is present, and Hyawan quietly handles her referee duties like it's just another Tuesday. Urian questions whether it's really fine for the teacher to look this chill about it, while Princess Surti keeps an extra watchful eye on him, since her dad personally nominated him for representative. Hyawan calmly lays down the rules and makes it clear that the duel must be fought without harming anyone in the process. She checks if both sides agree, and while Chris nods, he adds that he would have broken bones if the teacher wasn't there, which makes Urian call out his obsession for what it is. Hyawan creates a table mid-air with a spell and announces that the match will be decided by coin moving, confusing both competitors right off the bat. She explains that whoever pushes the coin to the opponent's side and keeps it there for 5 full seconds wins, but it can only be moved with magic, and if it flies off the table, it's an instant disqualification. Goliath wonders out loud why the rules sound like baby mode, while Rizzo answers that it only seems simple when it is actually quite tricky. Mew tags in with a clarification that you basically need to overpower the other guy to control the coin, and Sia adds that if you try too hard, the coin just launches itself and you lose. Jade builds on that by saying you can even tone down your output on purpose to trick your opponent into messing up, and Surti catches on that this is way more about brains than brawn, which instantly makes Ella worried. Chris throws in a smug line about always wanting to crush our boy while he just smirks, tells him to back it up with results, and even throws in a thank you since this match doubles as a free testing ground for midterm experiments. Right before the round kicks off, Chris quietly maps out his plan to trap the coin within his own magic field so no one else can touch it, only to lock it down on our boy's side the moment he starts panicking so he can sit back and watch Urian crumble. As the match nears kickoff, both players get into position, and the moment it starts, Chris wastes no time and blasts out strong magic while telling the commoner to stay in his lane, which immediately makes Goliath gasp at how fast things escalate. Rizzo figures anyone in Chris's shoes would try the same move since commoner magic is usually weaker, but the next second leaves Chris rattled as he finds the coin parked right in his own formation. Urian stands there looking unbothered while Haiwan begins the countdown. Miu notes how quick and precise the boy's control looks, and Sia admits it's not quite at her sister's level, though still surprisingly decent. Chris starts to sweat and wonders why this coin now feels like it weighs a whole mountain. He recalls this exact kind of overwhelming magic from the entrance exam, and pushes hard to send the coin over to the other side. The crowd watches closely as the coin finally starts to shift, but the tension breaks when Ricky points out that Urian is just trolling by, dragging it slowly to get in Chris's head. Chris spirals in confusion, trying to figure out what trick the commoner's pulling now that the coin's mapped a shape like a giant T and suspects some coded message. Meanwhile, our boy can't stop laughing since it means absolutely nothing, and the countdown resets without giving Chris a break. Chris grits his teeth and throws all his power to force the coin across, but Raizo realizes right away that the guy is clearly losing it and triggers what Hina calls a full-blown magic rampage. Jade yells for Ella to get behind him, and even Hiwan reacts fast, warning everyone to watch out since things could blow up any second. Urian, unfazed as always, compliments Chris's spirit and says the guy really knows how to go all in. He raises his hand and clenches a fist in front of him, and just like that, the wild magic across the arena drops to zero. Everyone freezes in shock at how suddenly the chaos dies out, while Lady Hershia looks impressed that the hero has finally figured out what she meant when she talked about the true limits of his power. Goliath nervously asks what just happened while Raizo is happily munching popcorn, fully enjoying the chaos, but wonders if Chris had this all planned out. Turns out our boy managed to contain the entire blast, though Hina finds that impossible to believe considering how unstable and insanely powerful the magic rampage was. But then, as she notices that smug little smirk on his face, she starts to doubt if it really is impossible after all. Meanwhile, Urian flashes back to the entry test where he couldn't control his power intensity. Even though someone saw through his hidden strength, his heart didn't explode back then. That same thing just happened again since Haiwan clearly understood what he just pulled off. He recalls the orphanage incident, that if he uses too much power, his heart feels like it's about to burst. The rule was simple that if his power gets revealed, he dies. But now he realizes that the standard for power was never specified. He looks at the ceiling and calls out to Herja, asking if the standard being measured is actually the hero's. Up in the heavens, Herja finally smiles and is pleased that our boy managed to connect the dots. She confirms his theory that her rule meant if someone shows power that exceeds a hero's, then their heart goes boom. But since this world is already a chaotic mess thanks to the mix of humans and all kinds of non-human species, the balance holding everything together is dangerously delicate. In this carefully maintained ecosystem, if the human side suddenly gains overwhelming power, the whole world could collapse. Her expression softens as she says that Urian will bring peace to this world with that very power, and quietly wishes that he finds peace on his lone warrior journey. Back in class, our boy casts heel on the noble brat who coughs back to life and looks around, clearly confused and trying to figure out what the hell just happened. Hiwan asks if he admits defeat while Raizo stands off to the side with the nastiest grin, taunting him mercilessly. The noble finally pieces it together and remembers he was in a match before blacking out, and then looks over to see Urian getting showered with praise from classmates. That sight burns him up inside as he slams his fist into the floor and shouts that the friendship competition is a major event tied to the kingdom's pride, which is why result matters more than status. Swallowing his pride, the previously arrogant noble admits defeat to Urian, which makes Hiwan smile as she tells him that learning to accept loss is a key part of getting stronger, and praises him for doing well. Urian shoots him a glance and quietly thanks him since this match helped him understand the true standard of his power. Haiwan then jumps back into lecture mode and announces that the friendly match against the Empire is officially locked in. She states that it basically involves 10 students from each school competing in a traditional competition, and then begins listing the names of the chosen first-year representatives. Starting off strong with Urian, who got personally handpicked by the king himself, she compliments his exceptional healing skill that will definitely help the team. Next up is Princess Surti, the top student of the class who basically has no weaknesses. Following her is Ricky, who's currently off in dreamland fantasizing about Urian while Haiyuan highlights his top-tier abilities like she's reading off a product ad. Last but not least are Sia and Miu, who clearly saw this coming as they step forward without a hint of surprise, while Huan adds that when those two work together, they're practically the strongest. With that, the chosen reps line up at the front of the class, dripped out in freshly tailored uniforms, but Raizo isn't buying it. He says that he doesn't care about being a rep, but demands to know what the selection criteria even were. He spits out that he's stronger than the entire lineup, to which Haiwan just grins, teasing that he must be real curious, and then bluntly drops that there wasn't any official criteria at all. Aside from Urian, the other 4 reps got picked because they all managed to defeat a level 3 monster. Jade nearly short-circuits on the spot, realizing there are more busted individuals in this school than just Princess Surti and Ricky. The twins puff up with pride while Haiwan adds that normally they do follow a strict process to choose reps, but a first year managing to beat a level 3 monster is so wild that it breaks the whole system, though Raizo doesn't look convinced. Urien remembers that before this year, only one other first year ever took down a level 3 monster, who was none other than their senior, Deus. Goliath and Hina are amazed by the record, while Ella lowers her eyes, remembering the terrifying level 3 tornado monster she once fought. She clenches her fist and makes a quiet promise to herself that she will grow strong enough to stand beside Urien as his one and only Nuna. On the other hand, Urien looks mildly annoyed by the childish design of their new uniforms, but before he can complain, Miu walks up and calls out to him. She boldly asks him out, which causes her sister and Ella to practically faint on the spot. Miu keeps the energy up, saying that with their powers combined, they could go from the strongest to straight-up invincible. She even throws in a marriage proposal so Urien can score a noble title, but he just looks at her like she's a walking disaster. The rejection is instant and brutal as our boy shuts her down on the spot, saying marriage should only happen between people who actually love each other, and she's too young to be saying that kind of stuff. Just then, Sia walks right up to Urien and warns him to tread carefully, but Miu admits that he's right, and she really did forget how important that part is when it comes to marriage. Saya stares at her in disbelief, but just then, Hyuan pops up in completely different clothes and announces it's time for everyone to pack their things. Hina's a bit lost about what's going on, and Goliath wonders where she even pulled that outfit from. Hyuan happily explains that they're all heading to the Empire and says that technically they should have already left this morning, but the surprise match delayed things a little. Urien starts to wonder if things are spiraling way too fast now. Sometime later, the class finally arrives in the Empire, and Ella immediately starts sparkling over everything around her. She looks over the scenery in awe and wonders if this is what real Empire life feels like. The smell of food is irresistible, so she floats toward it like a moth to a lamp while Jade tags along wagging his tail, barely able to contain his excitement over the golden chance to smash. Hyeoin informs everyone that the representatives have some business to handle first and instructs the rest to follow Ji around. However, Jade is still lost in his own happy little world, and for once, he's thankful he didn't get picked as a representative. Sensing this as a chance to move in closer, he asks if she's ever had grilled clams before, and that instantly grabs her attention. He starts pitching hard, saying seafood is the Empire's specialty, and grilled clams here taste absolutely amazing, then offers to take her for some. She agrees without hesitation, and he assures her that it won't take long if they eat quickly, and that he really wants to treat her. But right then, Chris suddenly appears and says that he prefers shrimp instead, completely blindsiding Jade. The blonde boy sees Ella's excited reaction and teases her, asking if she's never had shrimp before, and then keeps rambling about how Empire shrimp tastes insanely good. Jade clenches his pendant hard and wonders what in the world this noble guy's problem is. He cuts in and argues that king crab is even better than shrimp, which makes Ella light up in joy. He lays it on thick, saying king crab would totally suit someone as classy as her, and insists again that he really wants to treat her. Chris immediately jumps in too, saying he loves king crab as well and wants to tag along. Jade hits him with a cold glare and states with zero emotion that only 2 people can go, so he should probably find someone else. Chris fires back that there's nothing he can't pull off and smugly says he will just charm the owner instead. Meanwhile, Raizo walks off in the background, muttering about how noisy it's getting, while Hina waves them on to go ahead. Chris looks at the group and says that wandering off randomly in an unfamiliar place isn't the brightest move, while Jade silently prays that he takes his own advice and bounces. Just then, a loud voice cuts through the scene and asks who's making all that noise. A trio of funky-looking warriors walks up, with the one in front demanding to know if they're from the kingdom. Jade instantly recognizes the uniforms and confirms that they're students from the Imperial Magic Academy. The guy starts running his mouth, mocking them for being from the elite class but still having someone with a black brooch. The 2 lackeys start to immediately throw shade towards the kingdom's way, saying they must be desperate since they are hiring commoners. Jade warns them to watch what they say because Ella is leagues above any of them, but the nerd just scoffs and says there's no way a filthy commoner could possibly be better than them. The trio then breaks into their rehearsed introduction script, but Jade just notes that the turban guy has to be one of the match representatives. Chris steps up with a smirk and throws some shade their way, saying trash like them couldn't possibly belong to the Imperial elite. Ella and Jade burst into laughter while the trio starts fuming because apparently they can't take a joke. The turban guy especially doesn't let it slide and challenges them, barking at his 2 buddies to show them some real Empire power as they charge in. Ella doesn't hesitate a bit and says she will handle them herself, which makes Jade a bit uneasy. Chris doesn't even blink and comments that the morning fight makes these guys look like absolute pushovers, while Ella proceeds to wipe the floor with them. The glasses guy ends up on the ground with a nosebleed, and Ella mockingly points out that they seem way too slow and weak to be elite material. Bahru, the turban guy, gets furious and tells his two goons to drop out for embarrassing themselves. He then pulls out two stone swords and declares he's about to show the real power of the Empire. But before he can even take a step forward, a massive demon looms up behind him, freezing him in place. It turns out that Jade activated his demonic sword technique and calmly warns the guy that he won't go easy if he insists on fighting. Bahru starts sweating bullets and wonders what kind of nightmare magic this is. He then asks why Jade isn't one of the representatives, which makes him confused. With a grin, he replies that they've got way more impressive people on their side, while Ella promises that they won't lose no matter what. That nearly fries Bahru's brain as he stands there wondering who even claimed the kingdom had no talent this year. Right then, another voice rings out and asks Bahru if he's scared right now. She repeats herself and questions whether the mighty Empire students are seriously afraid of some kingdom kids. The trio starts frantically denying it, but Ryusei is already done with them. She clenches her fist and accuses them of dragging the Empire's name through the mud. She then blasts a huge energy beam at them that nearly scares the life out of them, but a giant shield pops up just in time to block it. Bahru looks around in shock as he realizes he's unharmed and demands to know what Jade thinks he's doing. But Jade just ignores him and tells Ryusei that the last attack could have seriously injured them if he hadn't blocked it. Miss Eyepatch coldly replies that he didn't block anything because that was just the warm-up. She begins charging another powerful magic blast and declares that this one's the real deal. Jade powers up again and says out loud that this is definitely spiraling out of control. Jade quickly throws up another shield while Ryusei finishes charging her next blast. Chris casually adds in some of his own magic to help fortify it, which only irritates her more. She snaps back, asking if they seriously think they can block even a fraction of her spell. Right then, she fires it off and Jade instantly panics as he realizes there's no way his shield can hold. He leans aside as the blast tears a hole clean through it. Meanwhile, some nearby civilians hear the loud impact and figure a fight has broken out, so they gather around, cheering Ryusei on, who is busy charging up another blast and dares Jade to block this one too. With a chilling edge to her voice, she warns that anyone who shames the Empire will be punished and lets the magic blast fly. But just then, Ryusei senses her magic vanish suddenly. At the same moment, a familiar face steps in as Ricky crashes down with his massive sword to block her incoming punch. Mr. Handsome tells her to take it down a notch and hurls a powerful wind spell that forces Ryusei onto the back foot. She glares at him in rage and demands to know who snuffed out her magic power. Ricky tries to take the credit, but Miss Eyepatch isn't buying that nonsense and says it felt like a much heavier, more refined kind of magic. And that's when she finally spots our boy, who is standing in the corner, radiating main character aura. Her eyes widen as she realizes Urien is the one behind the spell block and instantly gets fired up as she tells him to step up and face her. But before she can charge in, Hee-won suddenly appears beside her, which stops her mid-attack while the teacher gently pats her head and tells her to save it for the actual match because this scuffle ends here. Ryusei is still in shock from the jump scare, but then grumbles that she's leaving for now and yeets away. The goons trail behind her as she calls out that she will see them all in the friendly match, but next time, there will be no mercy. Ricky doesn't look impressed while Urien finally walks in and helps his classmate up. Jade uses his big brain and finally connects the dots as he remembers how Chris's magic vanished earlier too. He realizes that this feels exactly like that while Urien just gives him a confused smile. Meanwhile, Ricky notices something off and realizes his sword got damaged even though Ryusei did not use any magic when she hit it. He calls out to Urien that they absolutely cannot afford to lower their guard, while our boy just pulls a goofy face and asks why. Later, the group of representatives heads to the exchange hall and Bahru immediately starts sweating as he realizes these new students are on a completely different level, while Urien, on the other hand, is entirely focused on the food and is practically drooling over the juicy meats. Just then, a voice calls out, and the senior student Deos steps up and greets Princess Serti. Serti lights up when she spots him and Deos comments on how much she's grown. Miu narrates in the background that this guy is the strongest student in the entire Royal Magic School. Then Hye-won calls everyone to attention and starts roll call from 3rd year down to 1st year. Once she confirms all 10 reps are present, Deus politely greets her and she responds that she's expecting great things from him. Suddenly, a loud voice interrupts, which makes the ex-hero sigh at the nonsense about to begin. The speaker, Professor Kaisar from the Imperial School, takes the stage and welcomes everyone. He dives into a speech about the 7-year history of the tournament, but then he starts to throw a little shade that the kingdom cannot even defend against a monster invasion. He keeps going on about how even a level 5 monster wouldn't faze the Empire, which makes mages raise an eyebrow in annoyance. Finally, it's the kingdom's turn to speak, and Mr. Jerry strolls up to the stage, flashing a devilish grin as he starts talking about the event's legacy too. Meanwhile, the headmaster of the Imperial School claps for Kaisar's speech and praises him for dealing a blow to the kingdom's pride. Kizar gets all smug, thinking he's crushed the kingdom's image, but Jerry has other ideas. Holding up a middle finger without hesitation, he declares that the kingdom's students single-handedly defeated a level 4 monster, and that feat is going down in the history books. Still flipping the bird proudly, he adds that the Empire is currently on a 3-match losing streak, and if they manage to pick up anything useful from kingdom magic, they might someday qualify as a real magic school. With that, he gives a cheeky smile and wishes everyone good luck while Mages is absolutely loving it and feels glad he made Jerry a teacher. Next, the announcer takes over and declares that the matches will begin in 2 days, and until then, everyone is encouraged to mingle and have fun. Hewan immediately adds that since the boring speech session is over, it's time to go eat, and Urian wastes no time as he bolts straight for the king crab table. As he piles his plate like a starving African kid, a nervous second-year student approaches the professor and admits he's feeling uneasy. He explains that the real elite second years are still hospitalized and they're just replacements. He adds they feel more like a burden and aren't even sure what shady tricks the Empire will pull. The kid continues that since a level 4 monster showed up, this event shouldn't even be happening, but Urian just casually replies that it simply means they have to win. The second years are thrown off by how blunt that answer is, but then Surdy and Ricky back him up, saying they aren't planning to lose no matter how unfair the fight gets. The twins are fired up as ever and shout in agreement while Haiwan drops a few Shakespeare bars, saying that true strength doesn't come from status or position, it comes from the will within. She reminds them that titles mean nothing, and the only reason they're here is because they're exceptional. Her words bring tears to the wannabe Jinka's eyes, and the teacher ends by saying that she has full confidence in her outstanding students. The scene then shifts to 2 days later, and it's finally time for the friendly competition to kick off. At the arena, the first round of the 8th Magic competition is announced as a third-year one-on-one match. The royal school sends out Deus and Hewan casually tells him he is dead meat if he loses, but the boy confidently claims he will win without issue. The Imperial School's director Lee reassures his player Baganuzag, who looks like a high school form of Homelander, and says he can win if he plays his cards right. The announcer explains that the first school to win 2 out of 3 matches will claim victory in the competition. Back in the royal school's spectator box, Ji can barely hold in her excitement, and Principal Mages asks if it's her first time seeing a friendly match, which she confirms. Mages asks if she knows the reason why they have won 3 years in a row. Ji guesses it must be because their students are strong, but Mages says it is actually because Deus was born on their home turf. Deus greets Nuzag and asks how he has been, to which the guy responds that he is stronger now and instantly unleashes an absurd stat buff as the match kicks off. Normally, a 3 to 5 stat boost is manageable, but Nuzag buffs all 8 at once, which causes blood to shoot from his nose since his body is barely handling the pressure. Ji and Mages are impressed by the effort, but Deus reveals his ace, which is Death's Scythe that can slice through magic itself. Realizing he cannot afford to waste time, Nuzag lowers into a position that looks like he is about to sprint at the Olympics as he aims to finish the match in one decisive blow. Ricky raises an eyebrow at the strange pose, and Urian points out that it looks like something a ninja would pull. Director Lee understands the confusion and remembers how this exact move once caught him completely off guard. Nuzag calls it the charge stance and created it to counter Deus, who has been defeating him continuously for 2 years. Even though the 8 stat buff has enough power to bring Deus down, Nuzag knows it only works if he reaches him fast enough to land the final blow before the buff ends after 30 seconds. Though the director believed Nuzag would need 30 seconds to reach Deus, Nuzag just confidently told him he only needed 5 thanks to the charge technique. Inside the arena, Nuzag gets ready to sprint like a cheetah and believes his buff gives him more or equal power compared to a hero, which means he is sure to win. Just like that, he launches himself straight toward Deus, who looks amused that his opponent is charging in directly and calmly says that he is fine with wrapping things up early too. Principal Mages watches closely and understands the method, calling it a terrifying technique, but also admits it still cannot compare to Deus. Before Nuzag gets the chance to react, the Death Scythe slices through him with ease and makes Director Lee scream in horror, but Deus calmly states that he only sliced the magic itself, dropping Nuzag to his knees and securing the first round win. He tells Nuzag it was a good match. While inside the Imperial team's situation room, chaos breaks out because their Homelander from Temu got wiped out in under 30 seconds, which they consider a total disgrace and a coaching skill issue. The officials stress that a 4th loss to the kingdom cannot be allowed, especially now when the kingdom is dealing with a monster invasion that has already raised doubts about the empire across other nations. For this reason, a win is mandatory if they are to maintain their credibility and take the lead. But with their ace falling so quickly, they now worry that the entire strategy may fall apart. Director Lee starts to think he underestimated the opponents, but reminds the council that 1st and 2nd year matches are still left. If they can win the next 2 rounds, the 3rd year loss will not matter, and victory is still possible. However, the old man coldly responds that losing would bring consequences far beyond just blame or criticism. On the other side, Haiwan figures they only need one more win to secure the championship, so she urges the second years not to hand the burden of victory over to the juniors. The team moves with purpose, and one student who looks like Jinga from Beyblade remembers surviving the fight with Rarel and the promise made that day to never back down. Amid the announcements, the Empire's second-year leader looks down on them and mocks that he had not expected weak bugs, then asks where Rarel has gone. The Jinka wannabe, whose real name is Elal, fires back by insulting his mother, which turns the next match into something way more personal. The announcer declares the start of the second match while hyping up the moment by saying that the Kingdom team has taken the lead, and the second friendly match will decide whether the Empire pulls off a comeback or the Kingdom goes for a clean sweep while the crowd erupts in support of their teams. Both the Kingdom and the Empire hold massive expectations from their players, while the Empire team leader, Wool Zaha, notices that the Kingdom team lacks honor class badges, which tells him he is facing lower class students, something he takes as a ridiculous insult. He repeats that they should go fetch Rarel instead, and suddenly a magical gust of wind from him pushes the Kingdom team backward. Elal tells his squad to stand their ground since they are carrying the pride of the whole kingdom, but the Empire team finds it hilarious that a single gust sent their opponents scrambling, while one of them reminds the others of Zaha's game plan. The idea is to win with absolute ruthlessness and violence to put on a show and erase the shame of their earlier defeat. The leader Zaha recalls that the scars on his and his teammates' faces came from Rarel last year, who went too far after winning by cutting up their faces just to force them to look closely at his short sword, which got so bad the referee had to stop him. Ever since that day, Zaha and his team have trained hard to get revenge on Rarel, but fate takes an annoying turn and they do not even get the chance to face him. Instead, they are stuck fighting students from the lower ranks. The royal team moves into position with their wizard placed securely, while the Empire team leader questions if this really counts as a fight against kids before casually striding through their formation without them noticing and catches them completely off guard. He groans that he had trained just to crush Rarel and now has no way to restore his honor unless he gets involved directly, then shouts that the royal bugs have no chance and fires off a wave of magic that blasts the entire team down to the ground. Elal, though shaken by whatever force just hit him, pushes himself up and yells for his team to stay alert and set up defenses while Zaha questions whether they truly belong in the same grade as him, since the gap in strength feels massive. As the royal team pulls itself together, the wizard informs them that he escaped the blast by stepping out of range, which sparks an idea in Elal's mind. The rest of the Empire players want to jump in, but stay on the sidelines since their coach clearly told them to let the leader fight alone in order to deliver an impressive performance. Elal tries to boost the team's morale by saying they are still going to win, and the royal group takes note that Zaha is fighting solo and assumes that he can only hit targets at close range, which makes him vulnerable to long-distance attacks, so they prepare to shift into formation. Zaha finds this hilarious and offers not to attack for 30 seconds if they believe they can win within that limit, which confuses the royal team, but the wizard snaps them back to reality and they charge ahead with their plan. Before they can even do anything to him, the 30 seconds pass and Zaha erupts with magical energy again that wipes out the entire team in a single move. The wizard cries out for them, but Zaha makes it clear he is next by teleporting right in front of him in a flash and slapping him away before he even realizes what is happening. Ji and Mages instantly grasp the skill gap, with Ji now scared for the student's safety, but Mages decides to let Coach Hyawan handle the situation while she continues to watch in silence. Elal takes a brutal beating while Zaha mocks him and says a weak bug like him stands no chance against the honors class and should just beg for his life, but Elal surprises him by admitting that he may never beat them, yet adds that even if others laugh at him for trying, he refuses to quit because the version of Elal who used to run away no longer exists. He says that he is becoming someone who no longer fears anything and that if he runs away now, he will stay weak for the rest of his life, so he decides he will never shrink back again. But just as he reaches the peak of his speech, Zaha punches him straight in the face and sends him skidding across the hard arena floor like a skipping stone while coldly telling him to die. He rises again, covered in blood, and Zaha screams that he will just break his leg so he never stands up again. But before he can throw another punch, he gets stopped by a wave of magic that clearly surpasses his own and leaves him stunned. Our boy now steps forward and stands between Elal and his opponent, ready to shut the fight down before it gets worse than it already is. Elal looks up at Urian with confusion, while the professor shouts at them to stop since all the players are clearly down for the count. The referee steps in and calls the match, setting off the crowd as they cheer wildly that they finally got a win. Zaha throws a jab at Urian that he just got lucky because the bell rang and the ginger backs him up, claiming it was obvious the captain would win since his magic control is top tier, with the rest of the crew quickly agreeing. But Zaha glances at his own hand and realizes that back then, he completely lost control of his magic. Ella sighs since she honestly didn't expect Urian to jump in like that, while Jade just nods like he saw it coming, and finally confirms his theory. The reason Zaha's magic vanished was because our hero had pulled off instant magic nullification, which makes Jade burst into a weird little laugh since that ability is cracked. Urian gives Elal props that this time he didn't run away, and that in itself is impressive. The senior takes a moment to let it sink in and admits that even if he didn't accomplish much in the match, he's proud of that. But the adrenaline wears off fast, and he collapses like a sack of potatoes, making the worried onlookers call out for a medic. Urian looks a bit worried while the people around start to mutter about how the Empire really let things get out of hand. He heads over to his seniors with a smile, but just as he's about to use his magic, the same fat noble from before starts acting up, demanding to know what he thinks he's doing. Urian states the obvious that he's going to heal them, but the walking tub of lard immediately glitches and starts yelling at him since his healing spell only has limited uses. Urian tries to reason that leaving them untreated might cause serious consequences, but the fat guy keeps going and snaps that the competition is more important than them. He insists that the medics can take care of it as they rush in and begin casting healing spells, while everyone else just watches with grim expressions. Haiwen looks like she's about to break down, but then one of the medics yells that their healing spells aren't doing much since the wounds are far too serious. The senior healer quickly orders an immediate transfer and realizes that the Empire's game has definitely leveled up to cause such severe injuries. Out of nowhere, our boy steps forward and surprises the senior healer, who tells him to wait until they're done. The noble stares in disbelief, but Urian doesn't care anymore since he promised to himself that he will use this power to save people. The nobles can only look on in horror as Urian unleashes his absurdly broken healing spell. Every healer nearby is left speechless as the senior students slowly wake up, while the head healer immediately scolds his team for slacking off. The princess grins at our boy and says she would have been disappointed if he didn't heal them, while Mew jumps in again, clearly trying to shoot her shot with him, and Ricky stays ignorant in the background. All the first-year reps line up like they're in a poster shoot while the fat noble still looks like he's having a breakdown in slow motion. Hewin bumps into him and throws a sarcastic jab that the space here is way too tight. Then her tone drops to cold steel as she tells him to get out since this spot is restricted to officials only. The couch potato nearly collapses on the spot but somehow manages to squeak out that if they lose now, the blame will fall squarely on her. Haiwen shrugs it off and says he can do whatever he wants, then calmly tells the announcer to start the match. The announcer stumbles a bit but pushes forward, declaring that the kingdom is more than ready. The professor tries to stop her from riling things up more, but the damage is done as Ryusei coldly declares that the Empire won't back down, and just like that, their team jumps into the arena. Baru stands there in confusion since he leapt down by instinct, while a bald potato named Ham immediately starts fanboying over Urian's healing powers. His sad twin Jin thought it looked insanely cool, and some orange-haired guy starts randomly throwing shade at Ricky out of nowhere. Ryusei tells her squad that if any of them mess this up, they should get ready to meet their ancestors. One of the medics gently walks Elal, who still looks a bit down off the field, but then Urian calls out to him and says to leave the rest to them, which finally puts a smile on the guy's face. Lady Ji teases Mages that he's turning into Haiwan, and Mages replies that this match might be the one that decides everything. Ji states that their team clearly has the upper hand, though she's still worried about the Empire's shady tactics. Mages nods slightly as he shares the same concern, but brushes it aside as he looks over to Haiyuan, who is firing up the team with a final pep talk. She warns them that the Empire is definitely going to play dirty, but she ends with a sharp reminder that they have to win like they always do. With that, the gang goes in giving off main character energy. The announcer hypes the crowd and declares that this one will decide the winner of the friendly competition, then calls the teams onto the arena as the crowd completely loses it. Ryusei throws shade and says our boy won't be able to run like last time, while Urian flashes him the most innocent look he can manage, but just before things heat up, some NPC cuts into their moment. The guy grabs the mic and introduces himself as the Secretary General of the friendly competitions. He looks shady enough to be a discount villain and starts going crazy about how well the event has gone so far, but then drops a surprise twist that the final match comes with a brand new special rule. Miss G immediately calls the last-minute change too suspicious, while the headmaster mutters that the Empire probably pulled this stunt since they know they'll lose. Mages doesn't hold back and straight up calls the Empire cowards for messing with what was supposed to be a simple 5-on-5. The secretary pretends he is deaf and raises his hand to summon a massive tower out of nowhere, and then announces that the new objective is to pull the sword placed at the top of the tower. He explains that it's got 5 floors, and each player will be assigned to one. Whoever wins their duel gets to ascend, and the more players who win, the more control their team will have. Other school officials immediately argue that this wasn't mentioned before, and exposes the tactic to turn this into a one-on-one match. The Empire officials stand their ground and pretend it's totally fair, and Haiwan just smiles like she saw it coming from a mile away, proudly announcing that her students aren't the type to run away. The crowd falls into complete silence by the response, and the announcer officially kicks off the match. The referee then steps up and guides each player to their respective levels as they walk into the glowing magic door one by one. Back in the Empire's situation room, the principal's laughing like he just won the lottery and claims their victory is practically guaranteed now. He mocks our boys' squad, saying the healer is useless in solo combat and that the twin sisters are only good when they team up. He keeps celebrating as he boasts that their lineup is way stronger in one-on-one fights, and even throws in some petty insults hoping the Kingdom players crash and burn. Back to the competition, Urien walks into a bright room and has to shield his eyes from the glow, while his opponent is already waiting, who turns out to be Baru. On another floor, the princess steps into her section of the tower and coolly declares that all she needs to do is beat Ryusei and move on. Ryusei claps back and calls her arrogant for being so overconfident, but Surti fires right back and tells her to go look in the mirror first. Elsewhere, Sia looks a little down being separated from her sister, while Ham breaks her moment with a taunt that his little play toy has finally shown up. Saya silently promises to Mayu she will be right back after dealing with this pitiful excuse for a man. Meanwhile, Jin confidently claims that Mew has a 0% chance of winning, but she just yawns as she is clearly unimpressed by the bald potato. Another floor opens up to Ricky, who finds himself in a well-decorated room that looks way too fancy for a battlefield. He starts to wonder if the tower is connected to some pocket dimension, but just then the cocky brat from earlier shows up and immediately starts flinging insults. But the Silver Knight mogs him completely and asks where the stairs are. That hits a nerve as Heibi can't believe he got ignored like some ex nobody remembers. He starts provoking Ricky, but the knight casually draws his sword and delivers a clean slash right across the brat's body while throwing some heat his way. Heibi staggers a bit but suddenly grins like a lunatic, and Ricky's eyes go wide as he realizes his sword just melted. The mental asylum patient taunts him that he's not the only one who's got protection from a great spirit. His body bursts into flames as he sticks his tongue out like a clown, claiming they are about to have loads of fun, but Ricky's expression stays rock solid. Back at the Empire's control room, the headmaster is still riding high as he imagines the panic on the Kingdom team's faces. The professor next to him strokes his ego, but is clearly boiling inside from listening to this for the 10th time. The fat egg starts fantasizing about the Kingdom being utterly humiliated if only the Empire students make it up the tower. Coming back to the arena, the director praises himself for predicting that the match would be decided by the first years, and he'd even done some scouting beforehand. He admits that this is a cheap tactic, but everything is fair in love and war. Then the announcer suddenly shouts that a player is already coming upstairs, which snaps the director out of his thoughts. He immediately assumes it must be one of the twin brothers and bets on Jin, since the older twin always tries to finish his battles quickly, while Ham drags things out to savor the beatdown. To everyone's surprise, Urien pops out, but as soon as he notices that no one is here, he decides to leave and come back later. Director Lee freezes in shock as if someone insulted his grandma and wonders what the hell is going on. Baru recalls the moment Director Lee gave him the intel on Urien and tells him the guy can only pull off 3 heals in a day, and since he already patched up the second years, that leaves just 2 heals remaining. He adds that the healing power is pretty useless when it comes to an actual fight, which is why Baru's been told to deal with him quickly downstairs before things get trickier upstairs, where his ability might become more of a problem. Even though the director called Urien a weak commoner, acting like the mission would be a cakewalk, Baru doesn't buy into that overconfidence and decides to treat him like a legit opponent, saying that he has no intention of letting his guard down because Urien didn't get to represent the Royal Magic School by accident. He pulls out a pair of stone swords and makes it clear he's going all in, but Urien casually suggests they take things slow so it doesn't get boring too fast. Baru shoots that down immediately and says he's aiming for at least 3rd place to climb to the top, so he has no time to put up an act. That makes Urien remember the whole upstairs thing and think that 3rd place actually sounds kind of perfect. Not too flashy, but still up there. He asks Baru if they're jumping the gun by heading up already, but Baru claps the swords together like it's no big deal and shouts that it's exactly the right time. He says the Kingdom foolishly believed their students could win one-on-one even with the odds stacked against them, but what they don't realize is that the Empire came prepared with way better strategy and would have already crushed Urien's team thanks to lessons learned from past flops. Urien ends the yapping by confirming that if he went up now, he would still land 3rd place. Then the announcer explains that Urien of Team Kingdom was the first student to make it to the top, but gets all confused about why he went back down. Director Lee tries to guess that Baru dragged him back or something, but deep down the man's already sweating bullets, realizing he majorly misjudged our boy, and now all he can do is pray that the twins manage to follow the script. On the other floor, Jin tries to intimidate Mew by saying that both she and her sister have already been fully analyzed as the twin monsters who killed their own mother and got their magical powers sealed away. He claims that to use their magic, they must stay together, and this actually amuses Mew since the runt seems to have done his homework well. Min says that he and his brother make the better pair of twins and lights his hand with magic, while Ham instantly feels the same energy in his own hand. It becomes clear that the brothers are able to share their powers even across distance. He mocks that Miu and her twin lack this connection, and insists their defeat was already decided before the match even began. In another room, Heavy laughs off Ricky's attacks and tells him to go ahead and try harder, and even when Ricky does, his speed means nothing since the hits leave no mark. His windsword melts again, and Heavy asks what happened to that confidence, then kicks a hurricane of fire right at him and mocks him for being this easy. Ricky tries to block it with windshield, but just like Hayuan explained back in class, wind makes the flames stronger and turns the shield into fuel, setting him on fire while Heavy calls him an idiot and says he will never win. Meanwhile, Ji shares with Majas that she feels anxious about the students downstairs and wonders what Urian did after reaching the top. Majas thinks his students may be losing due to the sudden rule change and says he might have to stop the match and sue the Empire, but when he notices Haiwan's calm expression, his doubts start to fade. Haiwan silently tells her students to win, and right then Ricky breaks out from the fire. Heavy laughs at his struggle while Ricky summons the windsword and sneaks behind him fast. The fire brat mocks him for not knowing basic theory and boosts his flames by 200% while claiming he will melt his blade and his bones, but Ricky calls to the spirit Wii for strength. Heavy mocks him and claims his flames are impossible to put out, but Ricky flies over him and lands multiple strikes that end up putting out the fire, leaving him so stunned that he falls into a flashback where he sees his father again. He tells his father that he's finally a representative and plans to prove that their fire family is the strongest, but his father tells him there's no reason to prove anything because no matter how hard they try, fire can never defeat wind. His father says that out of the 4 spirits, only wind and fire spirits support humans, and between the two, wind ranks higher since the fire spirit Al holds no love for them. Heavy realizes that just like his father, he's ended up as a failure, and that their bloodline is destined to never be loved. He remembers how his father devoted his life to serving the fire spirit, and still collapsed into despair 3 years ago, and wonders if this is the same feeling crawling over him now while Ricky waits behind him with fury in his eyes. Ricky stares him down and asks coldly if he still wants to try melting bones like he bragged about earlier. Meanwhile, Jin throws a punch at Miu with his enchanted fist, but she dodges just in time and casually tells him that his punches are actually kind of useful. Jin takes that as shade and tries to scare her again, saying that without her magic, she can only run and she will wear herself out soon enough. He insists everything is unfolding exactly as planned, while Miu calls him dull for clinging so tightly to plans and says it probably explains why he isn't popular. Even with the banter, Miu starts to feel that the fight's turning bland and wonders if now's the time to pull out her hidden card. Jin tries asking what she means by not being popular, but she claps back and says, he's not just bald, he's blind too. Right at that moment, the door creaks open, and Urian wanders in like a confused toddler asking where his room is, leaving them both caught completely off guard. Realizing it's the special admission student, Jin starts stressing over Baharu possibly losing to a guy who can only heal. Urian wonders if he just messed up by walking in mid-match and worries about whether this counts as breaking any rules. Ma remembers a moment when her sister Sia told her a story about a prince on a white horse. Ma asks if he's some guy from the Empire, but Sia tells her he's the type who shows up when you're in real danger, and Miu asks if that means the guy is strong, though Sia says he's more of a wild card who risks everything for the one he loves. Mu questions whether that makes the guy powerful or just dumb, but figures it actually means he's brave, and now with Urian standing in front of her, she realizes he's her white-haired prince. Urian skips the drama and tells her to leave with him once she's done here and head out first, so he doesn't draw attention. Jin grits his teeth over this new wild card and says things will still go as planned, and that he will just beat both of them, while his body starts to flare up with mana. Ham senses it too, and guesses his brother is telling him to wrap it up fast while he sits menacingly on Sia's bruised body. He says he had wanted to mess around a bit longer, but since he's already decided, he will finish it now. Both brothers activate their power share at full force, which flattens their facial features and pumps up the veins in their heads. Jin explains that this one heart, one body mode lasts 2 minutes and 22 seconds, which makes them basically untouchable, so taking both opponents down is no big deal. He tells them to attack at the same time, and Urian takes it as an invitation, then drops the Megamind wannabe's powers straight to 0, and the guy's face slowly returns to normal. Meanwhile, the top 2 students hear the shake, and Ryusei thinks the others have already kicked off a wild fight, so she decides it's time they start theirs too, and Surti agrees. The princess recalls that Ryusei is known as a once-in-a-century talent, who suddenly offers a peek of her own special ability as a greeting, which is an explosion of a magical power burst. The beam blasts forward, but Surti remains untouched, creating a thin barrier with just her index finger. Ryusei asks what Surti plans to do after graduation, and the question catches her off guard. She points out that Surti belongs to royalty and wants to know how she imagines life once school ends, guessing she might spend her days chilling with flowers in some fancy castle garden. Surti stays quiet while Ryusei clenches her fist, annoyed that the princess doesn't even need to graduate with honors since royalty already guarantees her a comfy future. Surti admits Ryusei has a point since her brother will be taking the throne and she will not need top grades to prove anything. But since she refuses to be treated like some ornamental houseplant, she sends a return beam that launches Ryusei straight into the wall. As Ryusei gets back up, she locks eyes with Surti's pink glowing finger. Surti prepares for another strike and says she plans to use her power to save the world. Ryusei scoffs and tells her to focus on saving herself first, then charges another energy blast and says this time, she's going all in. The tower barely survives the chaos while the Imperial official struggles to hold it together and mutters that Ryusei should chill since the whole structure relies on magic to stay upright. He figures that if she hit with full strength, the place would have crumbled already, and now it looks like he will collapse before the castle does. At the same moment, Jin is getting wrecked by Mew, who keeps throwing punches while he unconsciously mumbles that everything is still going according to plan. But before she finishes him off, Urien starts walking away, which makes her ask where he's going, and he answers that they need to head upstairs. She stops messing with Jin and walks alongside Urien while wondering how they're supposed to get upstairs, and our boy just hopes they'll stumble into the exit if they keep wandering around, though eventually both of them end up completely lost in the castle. At that moment, Director Lee gets another shock when more students from the kingdom show up on top and yell that they definitely cheated and some shady foul play must be going on. Standing up there are Ricky and Moo, now the second and third to reach the top, and Ricky announces that the sudden shift in rules felt more like a setup to stop them from pulling the sword. One of the guards now posted around the sword explains that no rules were changed and says the original requirement was always that only a team leader can pull the sword, and doing it without one results in immediate disqualification. Ricky keeps his cool for now, though he's unsure how long he can stay calm while listening to this nonsense. And Mew quietly worries that Sia still hasn't shown up and guesses she might have used her ace too and already won her fight. Ricky starts questioning why Urien hasn't made it to the top yet since their enemies didn't seem strong enough to hold him up for this long, and wonders how long he's supposed to keep playing along before his teacher finally loses it. He looks down and spots Hyuan frozen in place, and starts to wonder what kind of sight could leave her that shaken. Hyuan, meanwhile, whispers level 4 to herself as a new threat appears that our heroes must now prepare to face. Meanwhile, Sia looks a bit down since she's hoping to reunite with her sister soon, who's still wandering around somewhere in the castle, while she and Urien end up right back in the same room they started in. It finally clicks for our boy that they've been going in circles, and right on cue, Mew starts whining that her legs are killing her from all the walking. She wonders if the layout is really that confusing, while Urien tries to reassure her that they'll figure it out soon enough. Mew then sneakily creeps up behind him and says that while she doesn't exactly hate the alone time, the others probably need backup by now. Our boy agrees with her concern and figures they're likely the only ones stuck on the lower levels. Mew worries that if more players from the Empire show up, her sister will be in trouble, though she's sure her sister already went ahead. With no better option, she suggests they split up since that way they'll have a better shot at finding the stairs. Meanwhile, Ryusei barely manages to block the princess's attack and still mocks her by saying that all she is good at is running away. Surti fires back that Ryusei's moves are way too easy to read, though deep down she thinks that blocking her attacks might not be possible without a barrier. Miss Eyepatch provokes her to actually attack for real now since she's ready to wrap this up, and the princess agrees, guessing the others are probably done by now, and then starts charging another spell. Ryusei taunts her that she's just going to chuck more magic again, but Surti corrects her that this time it's telekinesis. Right after, Ryusei gets stuck as magic chains lock her in place, and the princess tells her she's about to get folded like an omelet. Ryusei stays as calm as ever and casually asks if this is the so-called holy blessing everyone keeps hyping up. She channels her magic into her foot and kicks one of the chains apart, then launches a blast straight toward the princess. Surti gets caught off guard with no time to dodge and takes the hit, while Ryusei realizes she's free to move again. She looks a bit confused when she sees Surti still standing and asks how she managed to tank that. That kind of weak barrier shouldn't have held up, and she starts to wonder if this is because of that blessing. The scene cuts to a story which explains how humans used to be ridiculously weak even when their civilization advanced well, they always lagged behind other races. But one day the heavens apparently remembered humans existed and gave one person the most broken blessing possible. That power became known as Holy Blessing, and it's been passed down ever since, with Surti being chosen to carry it now. Ryusei's leg suddenly feels weak as she realizes that this must be the real deal. Deciding not to drag this out, she rushes in with a charged-up punch which surprises the princess, but Surti responds with her holy thumb and takes control of Ryusei's movements, causing her to miss completely. Surti starts sweating a little as this close-ranged fight gets a bit too uncomfortable and uses telekinesis again to send Miss Eyepatch flying backward. Ryusei's eyes widen as she gets hurled away, and Surti finally takes a breather. She slips into a flashback where her brother once told her she didn't need to go to magic school, but she had already made up her mind to use her power to protect people. As she lies in a crater, Ryusei asks if Surti left her soft little life the moment she got those powers, and says her situation was no different since she was tossed out into the cold without a choice. She jumps down and says that's exactly why she hates this power, and wishes she could have stayed weak like the princess. Surti isn't having it as she says she won't be swayed by cheap shots like that, and demands they settle this once and for all. Ryusei gets serious too, but just then, the door creaks open and breaks their focus as she pauses to check out the new intruder. All of a sudden, both of them start sweating bullets as a level 4 abomination strolls in, looking ready to unalive them if they so much as twitch wrong. The scene shifts back to Hayawon and Ricky just as darkness suddenly creeps across the sky, and Ricky turns pale as a ghost as his mind gets hazy. It's said that the stadium became the quietest it's ever been in history, and in the heart of that foul magic, some freaky new figures begin to emerge. A thick bluish haze rolls over the playing field as 3 level 4 monsters hover in the sky above the castle. The silence spreads through everyone, from the students to the imperial officials and even the roaring crowd below. The monsters are still far off, but instincts kick in and nerves begin to spike. 2 minutes have slipped by since Haiwan first spotted the figures, and now they are already looming above the stadium roof. Nobody dares to breathe until all of a sudden, Disease shows up behind Ricky without a sound, strolling casually toward the tower's upper entrance before slipping inside. Hyewon makes her entrance next and signals Deus to begin moving. He bolts straight toward the lower entrance, and Hyewon silently places her trust in him, then makes her way to the upper-level entrance without hesitation. Out of nowhere, a familiar voice greets her, and she turns to see someone she instantly recognizes. Neely stands beside her, all smiles and energy, happy to be seen again, and calls herself the adorable member of her old hero party. She giggles and says fate must really be wild for letting her meet Hyewon again, and asks if Hyewon still remembers her. Hyewon responds that she could never forget her, but the mood whiplashes hard as Neely suddenly asks why she was killed. Her voice turns hollow while her face starts warping, and she asks why she was tossed aside to die when the party had only Hyewon as the chosen hero. She keeps asking why things turned out this way, repeating it over and over until her entire face slides off like wax, turning into a disgusting, rotting blue figure instead. Neely accuses her of dooming the entire party and wonders how Hyewon can keep breathing without shame. She says if the rest of them are gone, then maybe the so-called hero should follow them into the ground. Hyewon doesn't flinch, sees through the trick, and calls out the illusion for what it is, addressing depression directly and saying their psychological tricks are as cheap as ever. The false image shatters and depression emerges fully now, entertained by Hyewon's mental resilience. He notes that she can still handle trauma like a pro and reminds her she also took off his arms and one leg, so it makes sense she's not exactly thrilled to see him again. Hyewon stares at him with raw fury, and depression takes the hint, chuckling while admitting that they didn't show up for a fight. He requests 5 minutes of silence and says that he wants to destroy them too for taking out his other form, but he's holding back for now. Hyewon puts the pieces together and figures that since level 4 monsters only number 8 total, they form a tight but strong squad. So if only 2 monsters can exist in duplicate, then the other depression twin is already dead. She wonders who managed to take out the other depression and guesses that it might have been the spirit Wii. She throws a jab and asks if the monsters came for a picnic instead of a battle since 3 out of 8 have already shown up and mocks them by comparing them to wild animals, but depression does not take the insult lightly. He warns her to speak with respect and address them as people while cutting out the extra provocations. He says again that they did not come to fight, but makes it very clear that the statement itself is a threat. He demands they stay still for just 5 minutes, after which everything will end, and as the plague doctor's hands exude tiny droplets that morph into viruses, he explains that if they make a move, every single student, teacher, and person in the audience will be wiped out. Hyewon catches on to the tactic and notes that they are locking her down by using innocent lives as leverage, then adds that for a bunch of monsters, their strategy feels too clean and coordinated. Ricky summons every ounce of courage he can gather and whispers a desperate plea to the spirit Y for help. But the spirit quietly sits on a flower and says she can't do anything now because during their last encounter, she made a pact with depression not to get involved. At the same time, Disease glances at the 2 girls and casually asks which one is the princess since to him, all pests look identical and he cannot tell them apart. Eyepatch Girl steps forward with zero hesitation and says she is the princess, then asks what happens if she comes along. Disease smiles and says pests are born liars who lie as naturally as they breathe. He admits that no matter what she says, he could never tell the truth from a lie, and Surti's gut confirms that this thing in front of them is indeed a level 4 monster, and that the whole reason for this mess is to kidnap the princess. She puts together that they want her alive, because if the plan was to kill her, they would not have wasted any time. Ryusei tells him that if he really doubts their answer, he should just leave, confirm who the princess is, and come back later since they will be standing here waiting like saints. Disease shrugs that off and shares a much more savage idea, saying he will just slice up both girls and take half of each back instead. Both girls freeze up the second they hear that, and Eye Patch Girl leans over to whisper that they are now stuck between two options. One is to fight together and hope they can shake the monster off and run, while the other is to use her as bait and help the princess escape, and although cruel, the second choice gives them better odds. Surti brings up another plan where she turns herself in as the princess and lets Ryusei escape, but Ryusei instantly rejects it and says it is out of the question. Princess Surti says she feels the same way and claims there is no backup plan left. So the two girls settle on a short-lived truce and stand side by side, ready to take on the nightmare in front of them. Urien starts checking one door after another until it finally hits him that this entire place has turned into a maze, almost like something is trying to stop him from entering certain rooms. But that only makes him more curious, and with a menacing smile, he decides he's going to find every single one of them. Meanwhile, the wannabe plague doctor floats up high in the sky while the Secretary General stands there trying to figure out what kind of nonsense is going on. He gets a bit depressed, wondering why the monsters had to invade exactly when he was in charge, and while he wants to take action right away, the authority of the towers has already been snatched from him by those cursed monsters. At the same time, Mr. Disease lets out a devastating blast that catches the two girls off guard by just how strong it is, but Ryusei locks in as she scoops up Surti in a full princess carry to get her out of danger. She then tells her that it's time to get serious, and Surti agrees as she activates her holy middle finger and drops a weaken spell on the monster. He asks if she seriously thinks that's going to work, but Surti tells him not to underestimate her while Ryusei charges her fist and smashes out a powerful attack that ends in a massive explosion. Mr. Disease pulls an Itachi move and points to the side, making Ryusei's arm instantly start to rot as she loses all feeling in it. Surti doesn't waste a second and uses the power of her thumb to deflect the incoming blast and asks Ryusei if she's okay. Miss Eye Patch just shrugs it off like this level of injury is nothing, and points to the massive hole in the hall that now doubles as their escape route. A few moments earlier, Ryusei laid it all out to Surti that there's no way they can beat this monster, and to be honest, the odds of both of them making it out alive are next to zero. That's why the plan has to be executed perfectly if they want even a tiny chance to live. The first step is to make an escape route, as the door is sealed shut with dark magic, which means they have to make a new door themselves. Back to the present, Ryusei tells her it's time for the second phase of the plan, but then she suddenly stops as both girls start bleeding from their noses and mouths. Mr. Disease just stands in the background with one finger raised while the girls freeze in place. The monster coldly declares that they were born to wipe out humans and tells the girls not to bother looking for a way to survive in front of them. Meanwhile, the entire arena gets sealed in a barrier and the civilians are way too terrified to even move. Even Mages feels the suffocating weight of the thing and figures that it must be some kind of mental magic barrier. Saya is pretty smart and pieces together that the reason they locked down the stadium is to restrict Hwon's movement. She starts to question what kind of goal requires this much planning and skill. Suddenly, she senses something strange and realizes the monster is heading downward, and Ricky picks up on the same thing, figuring that it must be going for the princess. Grinding his teeth, he turns to Hwon and tells her that right now, there might be something more important than all these lives. He asked her what matters more to the kingdom and says she needs to make a call fast. Ricky lays it out straight that he's even ready to die for the kingdom, but Hwon just smiles and asks if he really thinks she's that useless of a teacher. This Silver Knight is caught off guard as he asks what she's doing while Hwon starts charging up a blast. Depression laughs and says that nothing has changed, and claims her selfish actions are only going to hurt the people around her, but she just warns him to shut it unless he wants to see her snap for real. The monster stands frozen in place as his head slowly slides off and drops to the ground, while Hwon raises her sword and declares that the next one on her list is the Plague Doctor. The man just keeps farming aura in silence while Depression picks his head back up and admits it's impressive she still has this much strength left. Then he roasts her that she's clearly gotten weaker over time, and now, thanks to her actions, all the remaining humans here are going to face death. The Plague Doctor starts activating his super virus that was designed specifically to wipe out humans with ruthless efficiency. Hwon taunts that if he really planned to end humanity, he should have at least brought a level 5 monster, then unleashes her special move and slices both monsters into sushi while striking a clean pose at the end. The light inside the arena shifts sharply as Hwon slices the monsters into bits, and Ricky finds himself genuinely impressed by the raw strength of the former hero. But his awe cuts short when he sees blood drip from her nose, and when she looks back, the monsters already piece themselves back together like it's nothing. Depression looks pleased and says that even though her hero power faded, she still fights with guts. He follows up by insisting that her strength still falls short of killing them for real, and Miu feels sick to her stomach watching her favorite recovery magic abused by these things. Hwon refuses to back down and says they must be dumber than they look if they think she cannot tear them apart again, and wipes the blood from her face. But the Plague Doctor has other thoughts and laughs that she's the real fool here because instead of playing Monster Hunter, she should figure out how to reduce the death toll, and then launches a virus straight into the arena with a flick. At the same time, the princess stands frozen as her chest tightens. She struggles to breathe and figures that it must be something messing with her lungs. Her body grows colder and everything feels off. Her gut tells her something is wrong with her heart while disease keeps staring with those blank, hollow eyes. Ryusei catches on quickly and says that this attack never aimed to kill. If it had, they would be long gone by now. She reminds Surdy that the goal is to catch the princess alive, and that's the only reason they are still breathing. Eyepatch Girl thinks quickly and says they need to switch up the plan before the monster figures out who the real princess is, so she offers to make herself a decoy and let Surdy make a run for it. She mentions that there is zero chance of both of them surviving this, but that line snaps something in Surdy. Her memory pulls her back to a childhood moment, watching her older brother push through another intense training session. She asks if he came to the range to train again, and when he nods, she says she came too because she envies him. He seems surprised and asks why she would ever feel jealous since all he wants is a few peaceful days off. She brushes his words aside and excitedly asks what kind of training he did that day, hoping it's some cool swordsmanship or awesome magic, and says she wants to learn it too once she gets into school. He cuts the excitement short and tells her to stop saying nonsense before he turns to the maid Jenny and asks if his bath is ready. When she nods, he walks away without sparing his sister another glance. Surdy remains silent as Melissa, the other maid, gently tries to explain that the prince might just be tired, but the princess quietly asks if people would treat her differently if she earned good grades at the Magic Academy. She breaks into tears and says she doesn't want to live her life trapped forever in a castle like a princess in a tower. Melissa tries to comfort her and says that one day she will be able to live however she wants, but until that day comes, she must keep pushing herself again and again. Later on, her father shuts down her dream of attending magic school, and the rejection catches her completely off guard. Her father explains that there is no valid reason for her to enroll, mostly because he wants her to understand real-world values and absorb liberal arts in a proper educational setting. She cries that she wants to protect her people with her own two hands, and while Melissa gently reminds her of royal manners, the king sticks to reality and clarifies that everyone in this world plays a role, and hers is not to save people. Hearing that, she asks if it is because she's a girl, and His Majesty answers that it is not about gender, but more about how she is too weak, and if she walks into battle, her lack of strength would put others in danger, and that completely breaks her idea of saving anyone. He continues that protecting people doesn't have to mean fighting, and that a strong monarchy paired with proper leadership can build a sturdy nation and still protect its people. Still, she recalls her dream wasn't to grow up in a protected greenhouse and remembers how her prayers were once answered by receiving the divine blessing. She yells that sacrificing others is not necessary, and reminds herself that this blessing is what gave her the chance to leave that cage and finally protect people, so she decides that she will now protect every single one of them herself. With that, she uses her telekinesis on the monster by pointing her index finger toward it, and then realizes that it is not enough to push the heavy creature to the floor. She adds thumb control to increase her strength and tries to flatten him, but it only forces Disease to drop to one knee instead of completely going down. She sees that her skills fall short, but she still refuses to sacrifice anyone. Her face turns pale when Mr. Disease easily shakes off the attack and stares straight at her before confirming that she is the princess. With their cover now blown, Ryusei yells at her to move back while the monster signals toward its eyes, and in a flash their eyes start bleeding so much they get blinded. Mr. Disease gets back up and demands that the hand which used divine blessing be brought to him because he needs it. Though Eyepatch Girl is now fully blind, she still tells Surdy to stay behind her, but before she can defend her, the monster points at his head and drops her unconscious without even moving forward. The prince now panics over what might have happened to Ryusei and begs her to answer as Disease slowly approaches. The princess remembers her father's words about casualties and silently wishes that she had never stepped out of her greenhouse and never dreamed of being more than what she was born as. She wishes she had not wanted recognition or dreamed of strength, but Disease coldly reminds her that none of it ever mattered since death is coming for everyone no matter what path she chose. She sees nothing but darkness until a sharp beam of green light suddenly flashes, and she finds herself miraculously healed. Now standing in front of her, Urien casually asks how she held off the monster all alone, and wonders if it's because she is the princess, calling it kind of amazing. Surdy, clearly shocked, asks how he got there and where the monster disappeared. Urien just gives an awkward little smile like nothing happened while a pair of smoking legs lies right there at his feet. As he walks through the maze, our boy remembers this is his first time ever doing one in his life and finds it a bit tricky to escape, but then he notices a magical power shining in the distance and heads toward it. He blasts his way inside and is surprised to see a level 4 monster standing right in front of him. Disease starts ranting about another pest crawling inside but then pauses in confusion as this room should have been sealed. Meanwhile, our boy walks up to the princess who looks like she belongs in a zombie movie and starts calling out to her. He wonders if she's just dozed off while Disease lurks behind him throwing out Naruto hand signs. The monster keeps trying to curse Urian, who starts piecing together that something big just went down. As Disease keeps acting out charades, Urian turns around with fire in his eyes and asks if he built the maze just for this. The monster starts to sweat as Urian continues that he ran over thinking there was an event and repeats the question. But then, Mr. Disease suddenly strikes out. Urian doesn't let that slide and throws a wild punch which blows off his upper half in a massive explosion. He wonders where this thing even came from and figures that based on how ugly it is, he's got to be another level 4. First things first, he casts Heal on the two girls and Surti instantly snaps back to reality. She looks at him in disbelief as she tries to figure out when he got here, but then returns worrying about the monster. He plays dumb like he has no clue where it went while Ryusei also regains her senses. She's baffled that all those serious injuries were wiped away in a second and yells that she always knew our hero was the strongest. Though he insists again, he's just a humble commoner. Miss Eyepatch calls Cap and says he can't keep up the act anymore while Surti stays completely quiet, overwhelmed because this is her first time experiencing Urian's heal directly. She's seen it before, but going through it herself makes her realize how many people he could save with this power. Just then, she remembers her father's words that saving people doesn't require physical strength. She looks a bit down as she realizes Urian deserves her father's approval, but she doesn't even come close. He pulls her out of her thoughts and asks if she was holding back a level 4 all by herself, which is something no less than amazing. This throws her off completely as her face turns bright red and her mind blanks out from the sudden praise. Our boy wonders if he accidentally short-circuited her brain since he didn't really think before speaking. Ryusei quickly shifts the focus and asks about the divine blessing, which snaps the princess back to reality. She activates it and calms down after seeing it is still there, though Ryusei finds it weird that the level 4 didn't just take it when it easily could. She starts to suspect that maybe he has another target and Urian immediately says that might be it. Miss Eyepatch calls it a miracle that they're even alive and guesses that the monster must have assumed they were already dead. He tells them they should leave quickly, which she agrees with and points to the hole in the wall, but then double takes as she asks who made the second bigger hole. Then, Miss Eyepatch tries to convince herself that it must have been the monster's doing, while Urian quietly sighs in relief that he didn't get caught. Ryusei starts losing it a bit as she grabs her head, thinking she's definitely going insane, which honestly makes sense since she nearly died and only survived because of heal. She tries to stay focused since the danger isn't over yet, but then wonders how she's staying this calm. Staring at the huge hole, she asks how Urian even got here, and he replies that he just walked through it, which makes her eyes go wide. Surti guesses he must have shown up after the monster left since he didn't run into it. All of a sudden, Ryusei grabs his shoulder surprising him, and she says it was his heal all along. She yells that it's completely normal to panic right now, but everyone's just acting like there is nothing wrong. She shakes him like a blender and demands to know if he understands the kind of miracle he just pulled off. The princess also catches on and realizes that even their fear is gone, which means our boy's heal probably cures mental damage too. Just then, Ryusei shouts at the princess to look behind her as Disease appears out of nowhere. He warns her not to resist since her struggles won't change a thing, and extends his hand toward her while she stands frozen. Ryusei tries to leap in but realizes she's too late. However, Urian doesn't let that slide and all of a sudden the monster's magic vanishes, which leaves everyone stunned. Disease yells at him again for interfering, but Urian just stands there thinking he went easy earlier because he didn't want to break the tower, though it didn't help much since the monster bounced back fast. Ryusei charges again while Disease mocks her that her attacks are useless, but she doesn't care and lets her fists fly, creating a massive explosion. Urian praises her strength, which makes her smile, though the monster just stands there completely unfazed. Ryusei admits that it was everything she had, but Surti tells her to be proud since her strength is equal to hers. She says that no matter how hard they try, the two of them alone can't take down a level 4. Ryusei agrees and says they need to match the monster's power. Surti calls it in and says Urian's broken heal ability is the key, and the girls both turn to him, declaring that now it's his turn to shine while he just stands there with a dumb look on his face.